identified date. So you would have 3 meetings on the 19th, 3 meetings on the 10th, and 3 meetings on September 16th. When you look at the teachers, support staff, and administrators, increasing those meetings from 3 to 6, where you would have 2 meetings per region on each of those days. The other areas that we are looking, that we would increase would be the elected officials, also looking at higher ed, special interest groups, community organizations, and of course the education collaborators. So again, I'm going to reference the backup information that gives you a list. If you look at 2.01D, you can see each date, how many meetings would be on that particular date, how many focus groups would be held. And then if you look at 2.01E, you will see the suggested focus groups and then the subgroups aligned there. And then recommendations with regard to in-person or virtual, and then time. You'll note that in the category 1 for the student group, those times, those possible times are left blank because that will be determined, that is left to be determined because that will be based on the student schedule. And we would need to work with staff in order to determine those. An example of one of the categories, if you look at the category for elected officials, you will not see any names listed there. That is number 4. But we did list them by subgroup category. So that's an example of where some of the names specifically might not be listed, but we did utilize that category. And then we have the backup information with those specific names so that we can then be able to reach out to those specific people. And again, as the board, if you feel that any one or any subgroup was omitted as we move through this process, please make sure that you are submitting that information so that we can include it. I'd like to move to the rationale as to why we are recommending Model 2 versus Model 1. Model 2 provides more opportunities to hear from the community and to get an authentic sense of the characteristics of the superintendent leadership profile, and we can easily hear what is really important. It also provides the community the opportunity to share their diverse opinions and truly hear from each other, to hear some of the common philosophies and thoughts that they may have as a community and as a group. And as a whole, it just offers the opportunity to use multiple locations for meeting and facilitate the ease of access across multiple communities and organizations, especially with the larger categories of focus. Dr. Joseph.
Thank you. And just know too, so I've been contacted by community members. So if that happens, I mean, we love engaging. You have a very engaged community that you're in now. So I'll just reinforce it. And I think it's great that they're reaching out. So as people have reached out, I know we've also, if anybody's reached out and asked for specific meeting times or things, we've included it. We've asked them to reach out to Joe Caruso as we were working to coordinate this. So we didn't want the perception that one group had access that others did not have and so forth. So we made sure, just for full transparency, anybody that's reached out, we've asked to email Mr. Caruso, but then we've also put it in your file so you know this group, this entity reached out, here's what they said, here's what I said, because we know transparency is extremely important. We want to make sure everybody feel comfortable and know everybody's on equal playing field here as we're working through this process. It's important to us, we know it's important to you, we communicated it and working to make sure that that actually happens. So we can open it up for, I know you're gonna have some feedback, some public
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. Thank you, Dr. Adams. Yes. Before I turn it over to public comments, I do want to share and with my colleagues for a minute as I do have some guidance in preparation for this. We have a decision points to make, and we have a number of focus groups, and also to clarify the great distinction specifically around staff's involvement and HYA's involvement in an effort to continue to be incredibly clear. Like we hired HYA to be our contractors for this particular role, and everything is locally HYA. Staff, specifically Joe and council have council's on our staff involved in this process to support and ensure that the channels are followed directly in HYA. So thank you for that. I don't mean to be ambiguous, but help clarify moving further. Dr. Joseph, you mentioned the community group, and I just want to make note that we received one message, and that's included in the reference material files. So one group that's reached out to us, two other groups that were aware of the restrictions. And then all of those we direct them so that they can go out and direct. So I needed to put that on. Now we want to public comments. Chris Giuliani, come on up, please.
Madam Chair, members of the trustees, it's here, I might as well make some comments. So, just for your edification, I would suggest that you make any of the nonprofits that are on here, make sure they're accredited and registered in Nevada, because there's some that are flybys that claim they are, and you don't want to risk that part of it. And you just go to the Secretary of State's website. The second thing is I didn't see Girl Scouts, but I saw Boy Scouts, and I didn't see anything with your SOTs listed. And they really should have a voice in what's going on and what their comments would be. There's issues with Prisoners of Hope, but I don't know if you want to get into that. That's another thing. There's Walden University is not accredited in Nevada, and is only an online university, so I don't know that I need to take their feedback. You have a typo on page 3, it should be 872. And then I know my name was recommended. You guys not like me? I'm an educational collaborator, so I think I have something to offer one way or another. So I would ask please. Thank you. Oh, finally, on your focus groups, having done surveys in years past, I would suggest with your members, your employees, you do a simple card that's identified as yours only and give them that opportunity for feedback, because people run around in this town with extra jobs and whatnot. You're not always going to get them in the focus group. I don't know how you manage yours. I don't know. There's a company here in town that has been used for years for doing focus groups for both product as well as campaigns. It's called Zero Communications. They do that and host that for you. So if you don't have that expertise, there are just maybe some people to look at in that part. I would say make sure it's very confidential. Things are in all languages, or at least Tagalog, Spanish, whatever else we need to have. I know we do for the election purposes. And I did not see education support employees on the list, but maybe they were there and I didn't go through this as I should have. And I do think verbatim, even on the focus groups, would be very helpful for people to see. I don't think it's single out, I'll be freaking honest. But I do think you should do an augmented postcardish kind of thing that is identified, that people can write their comments in. Then on your parent meetings, or at least your evening meetings, I would look at, we're 24 hours town. Maybe you do one morning, when you do one evening, so that you're accommodating folks around your schedules. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. That includes public comments. All right, colleagues, I'm going to provide some additional context and guidance, and then we'll jump into questions to HYA. In regards to the focus group model presented, I just want to underline that option 1 is included in the search firm agreement. Any additional options, so recommended model, focus group model 3 and focus group model 4 have price points attached to them, and you'll see them at the bottom. Please join me for laying that out for us. Other things to consider when we are looking at budgets is that, especially when it comes to these particular models, utilizing school sites is a recommended option as the district owns these buildings and do not incur facility rental fees. We may, however, incur any overtime fees or energy use fees, right? Power, water, etc. When these meetings occur, including evenings and specifically weekends, overtime fees for staff buildings, there are specific protocols that are required. And then I also realized that school starts on Monday, and our staff may need additional time to secure school sites. And so I just asked for, well, that we have a grace period starting on August 12th, this information will be released in school sites. I asked for grace so that we give the administrators who are opening buildings an opportunity to tell us yea or nay whether they'll need to have a focus group on their site, and using schools. And then I asked the board view, thank you in advance for the flexibility as our staff is going to do to secure school sites for meetings. And one more little for you all to share. Paper. Let's see. Okay, I think that's it for now. There's a couple of other pieces, but I believe I will assist. I'm feeling my colleagues brings these stuff. Colleagues, I'm going to turn it over to you. Trustee Guzman.
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. First, I noticed that some of the groups that I recommended and the people I recommended are not on this list, which includes the ESP of the Year, who actually works in this district, and she was runner-up for National ESP of the Year. So that's something that we need to look at. The next thing, I have some questions on the focus groups. Is the reason, first I have region 1, 2, 3, and XXX. What does that mean exactly? Is there another region I'm unaware of?
Ms. Adams, if you're there.
Madam, it just takes a minute to clear the microphone. Madam President, Trustee Goodman, those X's were in case there were any other departments that may want to be included. Because as we know, the regions get pretty large, and that's why it's under that first area, because they may need separate rooms or something like that. That's what that.
And just clarifying, the reason that you recommend the focus group model 2 is to get a more clear understanding of our community, because we have so many schools and our community is so large. I'm just trying to understand the recommendation.
Yes, the recommendation would be so that if the meetings were in person or even virtual, that you would reduce some of the numbers so that they wouldn't be so large and that they could be more productive.
Okay, great, thank you. I just have one more question. When you're putting together the focus groups and you're working with CCSD staff, are they required to attend those meetings, or are they just coordinating with you?
They're just, well, the virtual meetings were fine without any.
Okay.
In-person meetings, we asked them to be there because there might be an issue with opening the door.
Okay.
They would be in a better position to handle opening those technical issues that were there.
Thank you. That's really important because we need to understand the costs, because this is your cost, and then there's also an additional cost for the staff. So thank you very much.
And Trustee Guzman, if I could address the ESP of the Year, we did receive that name and it has been added to the list.
We simply didn't call out any specific teachers' names or support staff names. They were in that category, but we did receive the names, and we will ensure that they know about the focus group. We just didn't name any single person by name in these documents.
Oh, okay.
We did under the education collaborators,
Right.
and we did receive those names, but we do have those names, and we do have them on the list to contact them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, trustee Rizwan. Dr. Adams, can you please, and Nancy and Dr. Joseph, can you please clarify the role that unions will play in participating in focus groups?
So they will be, it's really up to the board and how you want to handle that. But when you look at the meetings with the focus groups with the teachers, the unions could assist with facilitating that. If you felt that that needed to be pulled out, then we could absolutely do that, but that would be, as far as we're concerned, that would be according to your direction.
Thank you. So at this time, for example, the administrators union, and individuals who are in the administrator role would be invited to the administrators focus group currently for model 1 is August 25th. And they would be three, one for each.
Yes.
Right. Individual employees who belong to this category will be invited to these specific stakeholder groups. Got it. And then the other piece I have for us escaped me. I'm gonna keep it going. Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a few questions for the focus group dates page, which is page 3 of 9. For the advertising / invitations to focus groups, how will the advertising go? For the invitations, how will they be sent out? And is there these RSVP events for the in-person and online?
So we spoke a little bit about that with the staff here. We would put together that invitation email, and then you have listservs, for example, all the administrators or the teachers or the support staff. So in addition to being on a website for the superintendent search, we would also literally send that email out. You guys would do your listserv. We would create the email, but you would send it out to those already existing listservs, so that everybody in the organization that falls into that group would receive that information and that invitation. And then with regard to the building-based events, like the students working through the principals to know how to best reach the student population.
RSVP? Would it be by RSVP?
No.
I do want to throw out there, I would, oh, I lost my train of thought on that one. I'll get back to it. The surveys go live August 12th to the 29th. Is there a way we can extend this timeline? Because it is only the first 2 weeks of school. I am thinking, as someone mentioned earlier, I think it would be a great idea to use maybe like a QR code that we can post, because there's going to be open houses during this time. There's going to be, you know, family nights, like it's going to be, people are going to be in the building, so we can maybe work with our principals and share that out, have them share those lives. The surveys and options.
So, yeah, so we can absolutely do a QR code. We've done that before. Great idea. And we can absolutely extend the length of the survey. That's the timeline. I would suggest, I want to go back to the actual timeline here. We would not want to extend it any further than the draft leadership profile, which is on September the 12th. And so September the 12th is on a, that right now, that is a Thursday. So we could extend the survey to like the 9th, so if we go through that weekend. so we have enough, feedback to give you that draft leadership profile by the 12th. Or we could give you a draft that does not include the survey at all. I think you should see, you know, the survey results first with the information coming in from the focus groups as a more complete draft. So how about if we extend it to the 9th, which is an extra, that would be an extra, let's see, weekend, week, and a weekend. So an extra, like 13 days.
Would that be something we have to vote on or?
We should have a discussion on it, and we'll, if there are any changes to its current dates, structure, we should. Maybe one thing to consider is, that if the survey is complete by the 9th, that means we will have, it sounds like Nancy has provided guidance. We should include a content in the survey. That's the decision. This is survey content. Should it be included in the leadership profile?
The draft, yeah, that's right.
And in order for it just to be mindful of, we try to have to truly this run by the 12th, we let the April have the 2 or 3 days. That's a decision. Susan, or do you have anything else?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I appreciate the September 9th being a full weekend, another weekend. I think we can be flexible, maybe we extend it by a few more days. It doesn't have to be the full weekend, so that's something to consider for my colleagues. I was also thinking, my question is about the times of the meetings. You have it down at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Are we married to that 1 hour time thing, or is that something? It's also
That's flexible. We were going with what's kind of typical in your culture, and also knowing, you know, activities and night activities and dinner time, and you're trying to get to what's the most opportune time that people would be available, but it certainly is flexible.
Thank you, and I have a follow-up to that. So if we were to say 1 hour and we do the first couple focus groups, we're seeing this trend that it's taking, you know, all the time, and maybe adding another 30 minutes would be something that would be beneficial to everyone. Would that be something that has to come back to the board to go to extend those 30 minutes or add more time to those meetings?
My hope and goal is that the HYA has been contracted to give us guidance based off of their experiences, to say this is what's best practice. We'll also be able to make judgment assessments, changes as needed, as long as they can be
And I know we were talking about, Madam President, you mentioned about the schools being options to hold it in person. I was also thinking that's a great time to collaborate with the libraries and our community centers as well, since families are usually already there. I am being focused on my district specifically because I know there our community libraries very, you know, it's home for a lot of people there all the time. I think using those avenues is also useful. That's it for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees, and thank you, trustees Zamora. I remember a good point earlier in terms of trustee Zamora mentioned additional staff resources, including who will be out on our team, going out to support HYA during these in-person meetings. Likely will be Joe, and you know, we run a really lean team with Joe's board office, so just something that mindful of how this is, you know, and Joe, this is not the time to begin duplicating yourself. Thank you for that, Joe. In advance for the work. Yes.
I was gonna say, just trustees Zamora, just comment you say as we, you know, the focus groups are, if we have lots of people, then an hour may not be enough time. We'll make the adjustment on the spot if that's the case. The goal is to have people's voices heard, not we're not gonna have people upset, not feeling like they haven't expressed it. Typically, it's been about an hour you can get through group, it just depends on the size of the group. We will make the adjustment on the spot for people's voices. That's what's important. Both the UN.
Thank you. Trustee.Bustamante.Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. My questions are on page 3 of the PowerPoint presentation. So I did have some of the similar questions. One question that I had was, we submitted suggestions to how the survey could be adjusted and be better presented. Is that in another conversation and we'll discuss that?
All of the survey decisions that were made at the prior meeting have been incorporated. That includes the 6 languages in addition to Spanish and English. That includes the extra question about the zip code. That includes the extra question about voluntarily giving their email should they want additional information to be included on your database. And that also includes replacing the word district with CCSD.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarity.
Yes.
And I do like the idea of extending survey. That was one of my questions, and I appreciate that we were considering that. So thank you. My other question is on page 4. And it was about the 1 hour. And so when I've been in large groups, there are people that concentrate on speaking first, and the people that are introverts never get heard. And so I'm sure that you guys have strategies, right, that you will use to make sure that I showed up at an evening event for a reason and I felt like Thank you for that. And then my other question is on the community focus group model. My question has to do with recommended model number 2. Now at the bottom it says additional cost of $5,400 per contract. Can you explain that a little bit more for me?
Yes, so we included 32 sessions in the contract. After getting the information from the district, all of those spreadsheets that we received at the last meeting, it became clear to us that there was a voluminous amount of groups that the board wanted to be reached. And so we came up with the 4 different models. The contract does anticipate this, and thus in the contract, it states what the additional cost is for each additional section. And so that's already in the contract with CCSD, and simply I multiplied the number of sections by the contractual amount.
So Ms. Perez, then this is the total amount that it would cost me for the additional sessions going from 32 to 50.
Correct.
Okay, it's not 50, it's not $5,400 per additional.
No.
Okay.
No. No, we try to keep it nominal, you know, it is a time and materials issue, but we try to keep it nominal, so that is for the total increase to that number, and so on and so forth to the other options.
And then my other question is how, Madam President, I think this last meeting that we had, we approved some additional advertisement dollars to get a good reach at some point, to be able to have in one summary the additional costs that we are incurring and investing in order to maintain transparency and the outreach. That's not where we are.
Thank you, Trustee.Bustamante.Adams. I know that I can clarify in a minute to Joe. Would be able to share a little bit more information since you help us submit maybe some extensions or additional budget modifications. And if we would have anything else, maybe additional to this contract, you would have to submit another document for the external cost.
And last time we voted that it would be up to 50,000, right? Additional expenses that. Mr. Burns, please come up to the podium.
Madam President, members of the board, Joe Curso for the record. So ironically, just got an update on the request, and the agreed upon amount was $66,410. So you allocated $50,000 for travel and then $16,410, and then allowing me the opportunity to use travel money to professional services. So that I just received today, so that we submitted on, I submit that on the 26th.
And then I think just for my edification, it would be good to see it in one sheet because we have the initial contract at 75K. So we're adding additional 66,000 and some change, and then and to me, it's all an investment that I support. We want to be able to keep track of the costs that the investment into this process. And so my other question has to do with the focus group. Dr. Joseph, if a suggestion that we made that you may have, like I just couldn't get a hold of it. How does that? We made the recommendation. You cannot get a hold of a person for a focus group. Does that communication happen with Mr. Caruso so that we could help maybe track the person down if necessary? I don't want to leave it open-ended and say, you know what, I didn't get a hold of Yvette Williams, and so we didn't get there.
Yeah, no, we can think through that because the information will be sent out. If we're not RSVP, we won't know. If someone may get an email and say, "Oh, I'll be there," maybe I won't, and I don't know until they don't show up at the event. Right? So, if you'd like us to think through, more of a system, maybe asking in the email, "Please confirm receipt." Please confirm that as a way. Then there's just no, there's no surefire.
Me to coming back at the end of the evening. I'm just trying to prevent that and saying, we've exhausted every need to try to get. So I don't know what the answer is.
One of the things I may suggest would be definitely, because we put it up on the website, district website. Dates will be there all, we can maybe expand to say, we can, right now, we have a condensed version for simplicity, but we can list out, one consideration, we list out the different entities we reached out to, placed on the website and say, these are the dates for you. So then in addition, send them a direct message. So if they're interested in the search, they go to the website, they'll see, oh, I see my organization is here on this day, or they should have gotten a direct email. Well, this is a situation where you definitely want to over communicate.
Yes.
People know that it's out there.
Yes.
We're actively encouraging you to participate. So.
And then I just I appreciated the public comment. If the Girl Scouts weren't listed.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Trustee.Adams. We're gonna move on to Trustee Cavazos. Oh, sorry.
Madam President, Dr. Joseph, good to see you again, and hello to Dr. Perez and Dr. Metzger in cyberspace there helping us out. Wanted to circle back again to kind of like the beginning, very encouraging. And we're getting interest in the application not only on the HYA website, but also on the CCSD website also.
I am not sure about the CCSD website. I'm sure about the HYA website.
I did send just tonight the link to the posting to Mr. Caruso so that it can be placed on the CCSD website so that people that are linked directly to the posting on the HYA site and the application. And so that should be, up after tonight's meeting.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I appreciate it. So, kind of diving right into the focus groups here is the model 2 that's being recommended. And again, I apologize to some of these. I should have gotten out of this reference material. We just got this yesterday, so I'm really trying hard to read over it. Is the model 2 recommendation, has it been greatly impacted by the 60-page plus list that was turned in? There was some confusion when we were first given the information, like for us to turn in like targeted, like personal contacts and groups that we thought would really want to be, included. And then when we had that 60-page plus thing of, I was looking at some of those, again, been around a long time, looked at some of those. I think one of our public commenters brought up that some of those might actually not be appropriate to the focus groups we're doing. So was it that document that more or less took us over the top instead of the ones that were turned in by the individual trustees?
You would, I'm sorry, good evening, and Madam President and Trustee Gabata. The list did impact the number of meetings and focus groups that you would have, but also when you think of the fact that Clark County School District, just within the employees alone, your teachers, support staff, and administrators, you're looking at almost 50,000, if not over 50,000 employees. And so even if you divide them into thirds to add another meeting to make sure that people have an opportunity, even on a different day, to go and to have their voices heard, that also plays a part in it. You have an extensive parent community where you know that the parents are going to be there, to have, 2 meetings per region to be able to offer a third would also give them more opportunities to be able to participate and make a more productive meeting, because then they wouldn't have to have so many people in one meeting. You can divide that, and a parent could say, well, you know what, I went on the 19th, I don't need to go on the 10th or the 16th, or vice versa. If they have some type of scheduling conflict, they have more opportunities and access to be a part.
Thank you so much, and that helped a lot. I believe that was Dr. Perez, please. Dr. Adams, I'm sorry.
Adams.
Adams. Thank you so much for that clarification. I guess I was just trying to address constituents' concern that that we weren't going to have a list that maybe, as pointed out by one of our public commenters, and trying to look through it myself, that maybe they might be, as Trustee Bustamante.Adams pointed out, that maybe they might be able to respond and have SVPs, but that it was going to be targeted parents, educators, and the people who are actively involved in reaching out to you and reaching out to us. So I thank you for that, Dr. Adams. My other question had to do with, and other trustees have brought this up, where will the verbatim comments be accessible to the trustees, not just the summaries? Where will those be accessible?
So again, we don't collect verbatim comments at the focus groups. We do just summarize them. So we don't provide an actual list, like what every single person said. We're summarizing each group as to what are the key themes. It really is, and any group can then look up to make sure that they, that they see their voices in that summary. But a list of comments really is voluminous and doesn't really provide a good way for the board to read through the information and really get a feel for the different groups and what they're saying. So we don't transcribe it verbatim. We don't release the verbatim transcripts of the different online focus groups. We really don't think that that's our best practice. We do have them because we do summarize them, but that's not what's part of the leadership profile.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I do understand where you're coming from on that as far as efficiency and being able to kind of dial down to the common interest. So I would want to state that what was brought up by a couple of my colleagues as far as maybe having some way that if they had some additional feedback that they could have a QR code or a comment card, it's basically going from, very, very basic to maybe, something that would be very accessible to them, like the QR code and easy to access. So, one other question I'm gonna prioritize, because I know a lot of the trustees want to speak probably. Within the probes that are being used in the focus groups, will these very general probes, will they be expanded upon within the various focus groups, depending on the unique concerns or questions from a particular group? How does HYA usually handle that?
Yes, the answer is yes, the pros start the conversation, but certainly if a topic is brought up, for example, as one of the challenges, and a lot of people want to talk about that one challenge, we stay with that topic. Yes, they are pros. They're not, they're meant to get the conversation going, and not to put people in a box.
Thank you so much. And Madam President, I may have some follow-up questions, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop there, so I know we have other people with questions. So thank you so much, everyone, for the clarifications.
Thank you, Madam President. So Trustee Watkins kind of covered some of mine, but I want to follow a little bit deeper with individuals that maybe want to participate. So just for public's question, for example, if a support staff member would like to come and provide feedback according to document reference 2.01C, they could attend a session within their region on August 21st or September 18th. Do they have to RSVP to be able to be allowed to participate?
No.
That was a question that kind of popped up. So I want to go back to thank you for that, Dr. Joseph. And the summary verbatim. So I really appreciate it, and I think it's important. We're moving in beyond the 21st century, right? So, artificial intelligence is so accessible to everybody. So during our one-on-ones, we had the luxury of having a platform, which I won't name because we're not here to endorse any artificial intelligence applications, utilized that grabbed our verbatim responses and probably provided a summary of what we said so they can grab the dates. So can there be consideration that we could use that same or different platform during all of the focus groups? Because I just don't want like a summary from ChatGPT. I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way, but I think capturing verbatim in a way that people can always go back and reference it. And it would not necessarily attach to an individual, because oftentimes those applications just say speaker 1, speaker 2, no name is referenced.
So here's the only thing that will caution you with this, and that's why we also do not provide or don't recommend providing just an open-ended on the survey. You will receive comments. For example, if at every focus group we put up a QR code, which we've done before, some districts say we're fine with that, you will get comments that are inappropriate. And you will need to have your legal team review all those comments when there is a freedom of information request or you are told to post. And think about it, a comment for every 5-10 seconds over the course of an hour, over the course of 50 focus groups. Someone's going to have to redact that if there are things that are brought up that are inappropriate or even other things that then need to be investigated. So that's the only option that we do give you. There are some districts that have said, we're going to go in that direction anyway, but are usually very small, right? If they can handle the volume. The volume here will be significant. And so we've done all of these things before, but as I said, someone will have to, and your legal team, we certainly would not do that as we are not lawyers, have to go through that and ask what is appropriate then to be made public and what is not of those comments.
Thank you for that feedback. And then again, the possibility of it somehow being available in some format could still be considered. I don't know that we have a solution right now. even a summary from the application could also be provided as well.
We will provide a summary from every focus group, right? Of what the key, points were, we will summarize. But we don't like to collect all of that verbatim information, only for the reasons I just stated. Unfortunately, there will be comments that are, if I put up a QR code in a focus group and I say, feel free to add any comments if we didn't have a chance to speak tonight, we will receive comments that are totally inappropriate. Just, it happens every time. And so then those will have to be reviewed, redacted. Your lawyers will have to determine if it's appropriate to redact it or not. There might be personnel items that are brought up, student names, student information, all of those pieces. In our experience, they always have.
Thank you. So what would be the note, trying to make it finish off, what would be the note catcher? What would be the note catcher?
We will write the summary after the end of each focus group. We'll utilize what we've learned and we'll synthesize it into a paragraph.
I know when I do focus groups, as you saw in our meetings, I prefer to use just an AI that just captures summary. And easy. You still have to read it. After the spelling, it's a quick way to capture what happens. I focus on. But we'll definitely take it back and consistent. Make sure whatever is consistent.
And remember, after those summaries are done, what Sean did, I was thinking of the larger writing of the summary. We're trying to synthesize themes from all of the different groups, the board and the survey to come up with the profile and desired characteristics. Right, so that can't be done by any kind of AI, right? Like, so there may be some AI being utilized within an online focus group, but what the real work is trying to then synthesize what we've heard across all these different groups into the draft leadership profiles. And that's really difficult.
Thank you for that. And that is a huge undertaking. Exactly. The only other thing I wanted just to read as a reminder, because I also was echoing Trustee Bustamante-Adams in the cost. We also have the additional cost for the languages. So it would be helpful to see a visual just because of the nature of the path that we're going in. There's other additional things that we would have to consider. But I do concur that with the larger focus group amounts that we are doing, that having a smaller group would be beneficial to try to, like you said, garner all of the feedback and then grab the things. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. A couple questions. One is, what's considered a special interest group in this category, and why do they have 4 different meetings?
Yes, Madam President, Trustee Brooks. So when you look at the different special interest groups, and if you look at the list, those are organizations around Las Vegas, for example, that reach out to a targeted audience. And then when you look at your community organization, those are your larger groups, usually memberships and things like that. And so that was the rationale for that separation. And then it was just another way to be able to condense the list that we received to try and categorize them in a way that we could manage.
Thank you for the clarification. It just seems like I appreciate you including the special interest groups, but it seems like the number of meetings for teachers would be higher than special interest groups. Just to get, I don't think it sends a positive message that we would prioritize special interest over the people who are in classroom. I'm not sure that I have a solution for that. So I guess my follow-up question is, when you report out the special interest groups, you're going to lump all 4 of those together, and then that's gonna be their opinion, or are you gonna get like 4 different opinions?
All of the information would come together in a collective report. And I do want to clarify, there was not a prioritization of having more special interest group meetings because they were prioritized for teachers. That was not the case. The number was looking at the organizations for those specific interest groups and the numbers of people that might show up for that. If there is a recommendation from the board that the special interest group would be reduced, then we would take that under consideration and we would absolutely accommodate that. Just making sure, understanding that in the regions, looking at that geographic region, if you have 3 meetings for that region, those are 3 opportunities for those parents to come. And you have roughly, in with model 2, you have a total of 9 meetings that could accommodate, because you've already broken down the parents into sections by region. Whereas with special interest groups, that's more citywide than by region. I'm not sure if that's clear or not.
One of the things that we could do, you know, last time we met, we talked about the teachers group, and we thought that those should be in person. We have an option to the in-person dates by region, but we could add virtual sessions. And that way you have a lot more sessions than for teachers. And then they have the option of virtual as well. Last time the board was directing more toward in-person for teachers, but I do think that a lot of teachers still like to be virtual. So we could add virtual option, numerous for teachers.
Thank you for the clarification. That answers my question. I actually think that the basic model, I appreciate the group's enthusiasm for how excited the community is for this. But I've been here for 8 years and we do not have a community that is going to show up at each one of these. So by the time you hit meeting 3, you're going to be talking to an empty room. And that's just the unfortunate reality. So I want to be mindful of, I think what you're offering in your actual contract is more than adequate. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to accept that. And I'm open to suggestions on if tweaks are needed, but I think that this will get us there. I think you're doing an online survey. I think that the survey time, I also appreciate wanting to extend that, but I don't want to do that if I have to sacrifice the quality of work that happens after that. If you're gonna post QR codes in schools, the time people are gonna fill out the surveys are the first 2 weeks. So I just want to be mindful of that, and I want to move forward with a focus group model 1.
You are right about the survey. People take it immediately or they really don't take it. I mean, that we see that in every survey we do. So you are right.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. I see you have a motion, or do we have a second at this time? Or Trustee Lovisa, are you're on the queue, are you something? I don't have a question. We're gonna ask, we'll go ahead and take your question. Trustee Brooks, are you done at this time?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion, and it sounds like there may be some questions and potential come back to us.
Okay, so I think what we have to remember here is, and I will agree with Trustee Brooks that, again, having been here for about the same amount of time as her, is that we have some basic questions, probes, and commonalities that we're going to be seeking here. And I do think that, again, as to my previous question, that we do want to focus in on students, the parents, the educators, the community organizations, and not an endless list of not meaning to exclude anyone, but the people who are actually going to show up. And I will kind of temper my comments with saying that sometimes we don't know who's going to show up. So sometimes the people that we think are gonna show up are not there, and other times we will have a larger community show up. So I think that I just want to make the comment that we don't have an absolute rush to do this if we're not going to, you know, look at every single aspect. I think what our goal here and what HYA is trying to do for us with their expertise is to do this right, not necessarily to be on a very tight deadline. So I appreciate my colleagues that are, you know, talking about, like, I'll use as an example, Trustees.Zamora, as far as extending the survey, doing comment cards, whatever. So, anyway, I just wanted to make that point and to agree with Trustee Brooks that, that we do want to have the focus on, the people that are most going to be impacted on our search for this new, searching and appointment of a new superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez. I see Trustee Zamora and I Trustee Tori and now myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have two questions. The post just brought up that people will do a survey in the first 2 weeks that is out. It sounds like that's because what you all have done in the past is what has happened. Has it lined up with also the first week of school or around something that important before?
No, this is more unusual that it's lining up with for a couple of weeks of school.
Okay. And then the second question I had was, what are expectations for trustees who would like to participate in, this is for my improvement, for focus groups?
Actually, given that HYAs are experts in this, what have you all done when it comes to engagement of members at these focus groups? You all recommend this?
Yeah, there's an event. I mean, we've seen instances where, you know, because the community is involved, sometimes trustees like to be there, either welcome them, seeing that happen, and just kind of open it up and then turn it over to the HYA folks to facilitate. That's you know, makes sense. It's a good opportunity because the community is there. Sometimes board members like to just hear. They want to be there and just hear what's happening firsthand. That's good. You know your community. You know your community expectations. There could be instances where you know you know your culture to know whether people feel comfortable speaking, but they're there speaking in public anyway. Speak to people who want to make decisions. Makes sense.
Right, so what Sean said about the community is true. Sometimes the teachers, administrators support that your employees feel that they cannot be as forthright with basically, you know, the head of the organization in the room. Because they know that it will be attributed to them personally, we're not, you know, they're not on TV, and so they're able to speak more freely. So I would say there is a difference between the employee groups and the community groups.
Thank you for that, and we can come up with a united. There's an appetite more to focus more our energy on supporting, having an interest in attending some community groups that we create some united, unified, consistent protocol so that we all know and are doing the same thing across groups. Okay. Great. Community groups. Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Trustee Sapori?
And my question was related to the survey window as well. So that was my initial first thought of usually people see it in the first couple weeks or very soon after. At least, however, knowing that the focus groups are still taking place at that time, like I thought it would probably be useful to have the survey still. So it's kind of my question, do you see that as we're having those focus groups, that we could also then promote the survey, get more people in there, like we said, a lot of people that may not have come saying something in focus group, we could direct them to the survey since they were able to share. So that's where I kind of think maybe that window up a little bit wider, or to need to. So have you seen that past that it does? And you do get more responses as well once the focus groups are in place.
So we always remind people at the focus groups about the survey, and that's why the original calendar had the focus group for the online survey in the exact same time period, the 12th to the 29th. Then we realized the number of focus groups and going back to school and you need to take them, we extended that to September 20th. And so now, they're right, but originally, the original timeline had them coincide exactly together. So I think we can extend it, given, the start of the school year. I do think, it would be best for it to end before the first draft of the leadership profile, otherwise you're really not getting a real draft.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well, because I'd love to see all that all together, we see that. And then I would definitely support more of the virtual options as well, because it allows us to open more options up, plus we don't have costs of the facilities and those sorts of things, so we're able to offer more of those opportunities. Thank you.
And I know we track the rate of the response rate of the survey. And as we have updates to tell you X amount of people have filled out, and these are the groups. Because a lot of times it'll give you an opportunity while the survey is going, what are we doing different here? Not getting the response rate that we see students or parents or one aspect of your employee. But as we give updates, we can let you know, we'll see it's tracking well or it's not. You can do something.
Thank you, Trustee Victoria, is that it?
Yes.
Trustee Bartoshak.
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, I have a question for Dr. Adams. So I was kind of just doing just a straight basic math, right? We would go from 50 to 32, which would be minus 18 groups. Knowing that that's kind of where I was going with the solution to think about how can we, Dr. Adams, convert some of those groups, maybe they become a little bit larger, or maybe they become virtual. So to put you on the spot, I apologize, Dr. Adams, but you did an amazing job.
Not a problem.
So is that a doable thing? Because I don't want the community to have the perception that we're gonna eliminate anybody's voice. So is there a way that you can see that be potentially happen?
We could, absolutely, we could do, if that is what the board would like us to do, absolutely, we could offer a couple of those virtually. Because our role, again, is to be your ambassadors, to present you with options when you are looking at how many meetings you might be able to do based on the list that came to us, to see how we could facilitate what the needs were. And so we are more than happy if some of those sessions are virtual versus in person. We could absolutely do that.
Thank you. And having said that, I'd like to second the motion at this time.
Thank you for that, Trustees Worksession again. My colleagues, we have a motion, let's take a moment here to pause, the refresher. How we went around this, because there's a couple of other decision points that we have to make. I'm gonna ask Joe to come on up, please, council. Before we take the vote, colleagues, to move forward with the focus group level 1. Joe, can you help us out here as we prepare to other decision points do we need to make? And please remind me, did we take a vote every time we had a decision point? Yes, right? Is there anything with respect to the focus groups that you want to share at this time?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Joe Caruso for the record. So I appreciate that and appreciate the clarity. So devil's in the details. Just make sure that I think it would be helpful if the board could ask the firm to send an email tomorrow, or myself, you know exactly which meetings are in person, which meetings are virtual. Because the challenge is tomorrow's the 8th, the open school's on the 12th. Principals are going to be and are already living at their buildings now, and being a former principal, looking at a former principal, and it's a busy weekend. So we will start reaching out immediately to say, can we use your building on such and such a date? My suggestion is we use high school in theaters. If you remember 2018, trustee Vados, we used Silverado at the gym. First complaint I heard from everyone was they couldn't hear because of the So our smaller sites, elementary, obviously is not parking. So we'll want to look at the high schools, we'll want to look at the regions. The transformation network overlaps with the regions, so we'll still make sure that there are in that area as well. The other piece to keep in mind too is that we want to clarify the staff component. So when we get the dates from the firm, the time frame of 6 to 7 p.m. obviously. But we'll need to have the flexibility from the board to say, you know, trying to get this together by the 12th is going to be tight. I will do my best, Nicole will do her best, but we may not get the schedule to the firm the evening of the 12th, the 13th, and give them some latitude. Just so as long as we understand that you are allowing us that grace, do our best to work as much as we can. I heard that obviously microphone will be needed. It doesn't sound like there's any audio visual presentation. So that'll help. In regards to communication, I heard you say that we will get a message from the firm to send out district-wide using our listservs and support professional licensed all administrators and school police. I do think if I can ask if you are attending the meetings, I would really appreciate it if you let me know, because my brain goes to open meeting law, especially with having 4 voting members in the same spot. I don't know what your position looks like, dialoguing about an potential action item forthcoming, so I think it'd be helpful. Usually on the same page. The other piece, obviously, to know because there's certain staff that I need to have, so I understand. Make sure that's taken care of. And then my other component, just to make sure that we're on the same page for this, when we do the in-person meetings, I will work and dial a friend. Probably the 2 sitting to my left. I think faith colleague back in the office to have us so we can divide and conquer if we're going to try to do meetings. Because based on the schedule, it looks like some meetings will all run synonymous with one another. So trying to be important is a challenge. But we will make sure that we'll have a representative there. Support for you, and then support for the team. And then it does sound like the virtual meetings will be handled completely by HYA. So we will advertise that, but we're not actually facilitating sending out any group. I think I recapped that correctly, but if not,
Thank you for that, appreciate it. Perfect, I think at this point, plans are clear, we have given the staff direction, a direction, and to make a point decision on actually focus groups, and we have a motion, thank you, yes, let's go ahead. College of Trustees Worksession, second by trustee, as far as strong. Oh. Allow me 1 moment before we take a vote. Trustee.Bustamante.Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. So I can support the motion. What my question is that Trustee Satori said about extending the survey just a little beyond, and that was not in the motion. Yes. So we're just approving the focus groups now, and then we'll talk about the extension.
Okay. Right, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and take.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to clarify the motion. I am making a motion to approve focus group model 1, and I want to build in some of the feedback from other board members and grant authority to work this out so that there are some virtual options. And I'm going to leave that in the hands of the professionals, but I want to build that into the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Parsons Property, and to you, still second.
I will.
Thank you. Hey, colleagues, we have a motion on the floor by Trustee Brooks, second by Trustee Parsons Property. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. The motion passes 7-0. Now, are there any other discussion points we have with respect to Hey, trustee Rizwan?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to extend the survey, but not to September 9th. I'd like to make it until after Labor.
First, here's the Sunday.
First is Sunday, second, and yeah, I'll take it. To September 3rd.
Thank you, trustee Rizwan. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. I like it when we're on the same wavelength sometimes because I have wrote down September 4th, but September 3rd I can work with, so I will second that motion.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, we have a motion by trustee Rizwan, a second by trustee Zamora on the survey. Extension, please cast your vote. Super. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 7-0. We've got a survey. We've got clarity on the focus groups and additional guidance and information will be coming from me with respect to consistency for board attendance at community session groups based on the feedback provided at today's meeting. And more to come. Council, Joe, is there anything else I think let's add for the conversation? Dr. Joseph, Dr. Adams, Perez, is there anything else?
We'll look forward to continuing.
Perfect. Thank you very much for walking us through this process. Incredibly grateful for your talent and leadership and to get us across this line.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes. All right, colleagues, we are gonna move on to item 2.2. Legislative bill draft. Before I open this item, there anyone who has not had a chance to complete a public card, please do so now. Once we begin the presentation, we will no longer accept public comments. Wonderful. This item, point of contact, is Mr. Story. Hi. Hello. Mr. Lee, welcome. Thank you for coming back to us and taking it away.
Thank you, Madam President, trustees, interim superintendent, Brenda.Zamora.Adams, Story, Chief Communications Officer for the Clark County School District. Last month, we came to the Board of School Trustees to discuss possible bill drafts for the 2025 legislative session. As a reminder, Nevada revised statutes grant up to 2 bill draft requests each legislative session to the Clark County School District. Requests must be approved by the Board of School Trustees as an action item can be submitted to the Legislative Council Bureau by September 1st, 2024. Our last discussion resulted in 3 final topics aligned with the platform adopted by the board. Dr. Keating will guide us through the conversation regarding the wishes of the board for the 2 BDR submission.
Good afternoon, President Garcia Morales, members of the board, interim superintendent, Dr. Lawrence Mitchell, Brad Keating for the record. Based on last month's conversation, there are 3 topics that the board expressed the most support of. Those included teacher recruitment, retention and development, school bullying, updates to bullying statutes, and additional mental health resources for students. So the first topic for your review, and it's in reference material this evening, is to appropriate dedicated funding to school districts to expand and diversify licensed professional recruitment, retention, and development programs. Second topic, bullying, clarifies the law and allows for students with substantiated discrimination, cyberbullying, or bullying incidents to be transferred to a different school rather than victim. The third topic discussed was mental health and the possibility of creating a community and schools mental health partnership to help streamline, understand the role of government agencies, healthcare providers, community organizations in servicing schools. By coordinating efforts, it would be the hope that those mental health services are better aligned to support students in need. We look to the board to further discuss these and any other topics you may have.
Wonderful, thank you. I am going to take public comment on this item before we begin discussion before we move on to public comment, I wanna thank my colleagues, Trustee Cavazos for raising up the discrepancy that took place around the count, and I know I was counting. I'm grateful to Dr. Mitchell and her team for helping us review the materials and count the EDR tally that exists for members. And so thank you always in advance for that, for help with tallying those numbers this next go around when we spend on our top. For the comment, I have Chris James.
Again, Madam Chair, members of the trustees, Christine Kiliani. Wanted to, you have two bill drafts. Sometimes you find a committee person to do the simpler one and you don't waste your bill draft on something else. So that's just a tip. And I know former Assemblywoman Irene.Bustamante.Adams knows how that works. But I wanted to talk about the teacher retention and traction component. In the 90s, I wrote legislation that created a 1/5 extra PERS credit for people that worked in the district. They'd already had 5 years in, they had committed another 5, and they got extra PERS, and that worked very well. During the tide session in 2017, it came off the books. I don't think anybody even realized it came off the books. So I provided the original language to Trustee Cavazos just so you have it to look at, but that worked, and that was another component I want to address. Secondarily, I would suggest, maybe this doesn't have to be a bill draft, maybe it's something you determine. You really should be looking at split contracts, especially for your pre-K to 3rd graders, where you're doing shared contracts or split contracts. I think that might be more administrative, but I'm not sure. But you could even have retirees come back in as long as their PERS isn't impacted. So at least you're not doing a full-time substitute teacher. So that would be something else to take a look at. Used to have a loan forgiveness, and I think you did it with ERPA or ARPA or whatever monies, but that went away. So did that loan forgiveness component. I think you should establish a fund. You could do a roll-off of a percent off of some savings or reserves that are there to fund the loan forgiveness, and or people that you recruit and say, hey, can you go into special ed? You've already got your degree, would you go into this? And you pay and compensate for that part of it. That would be another possibility. I do think you should reopen the contract to renegotiate the 2-to-1 differential between first-time teachers and experienced teachers. It's causing a problem internally, as you well know. There's that needs to be modified. If the negotiations have, you can open the contract if you get agreement. And that if you do something like that, look at the sick leave payout. Separate from what administration, what happened was in the paper. Just as an example, I think it's been the same for 40 years. When I retired 6 years ago, I had 235 days of sick leave and I got $0 because the fund had already run out of money. So it's a negotiated item, but it's something to take a look at because I think that payout is an incentive to retain. Let's see. You could also have talk to PERS and see if retired teachers can come back. And maybe they work with your first-year teachers. They help them set up their classrooms. They help them set up their discipline plan. Simple things. It doesn't have to be full-time. It could be 1 day a week. But at least there's a support person, a mentor, or someone there that's there. But it's the PERS thing that might need to be tweaked, and I'm not sure on that part of it. When I work in the election department, I can get paid, but I don't know where the cap is on how much you're allowed to earn. And then I would say it's time to formalize and create a true pipeline in your high schools for a career component of childcare and education and support personnel, if that's the case. And so you actually identify young people in maybe junior year and start finding out credits that they could start being earned, do the dual credit, have CSN work with them. So you've actually got a pipeline of growing your own in the school district. And I think that'll help for down the road. I don't know what you do about the 1,000 shortage that you have right now, but there are some things that need to be taken care of structurally. And so those are just some ideas that I thought you might want to have considered. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. That concludes public comment. At this time, we need to provide energy discussion and questions to the team, and ultimately at the end of this, we need to make sure that provide their guidance, on BDRs, which two BDRs we're going to move forward. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. Can I get confirmation on the timeline? What is our deadline for getting this into document?
Sorry, trustees. Madam President, trustee, interim superintendent, Dr. Brenda.Zamora. Trustee Brooks, September 1st is the deadline. We have to see the findings.
Thank you. And then I will just jump right in and say that I prefer the top two options, teacher recruitment and bullying. I'm not opposed to mental health, but there are 3 BDRs already, and one of them specifically is related to the mental health of children. So I don't think it's beneficial for us. There aren't any field draft requests for the other.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks, and I appreciate that. Todd, will you all be helping us keep track of the counts of what members are seeing? Next,
Madam President, trustees, interim superintendent, Dr. Brenda.Zamora.
appreciate it. Thank you. Trustee Guzman?
Thank you. I was just wondering, is Washoe putting forward a teacher recruitment, retention, and development type bill draft? And could we work with them? Do you know?
President, trustees, interim superintendent, Dr. Brenda.Zamora, special top story for the record. Trustee Guzman, Washoe is that language specifically, they do get 1 BDR.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that that is BDR.
And I'm just curious because I know that Lander County pays their teachers to become SPED certified. And I know that there are other things, there's support personnel and grow your own programs in other districts. And so I thought maybe, even in ours, I thought maybe there might be a BDR already present. Okay. And then the bullying, I haven't heard anything about bullying. So I would ask, are you aware of the mental health BDRs and who's to put them forward?
President Garcia Morales, members of the board, interim superintendent Dr. Dolores Mitchell, there's about 200 bill drafts that have been submitted thus far. The specific language has not been drafted yet for any of those. The LTV's drafting. We've had some communication with some legislators that have talked to us about mental health specifically. Nothing around the topic that's before you currently. We're working with them to try to make sure that we wouldn't waste the BDR.
Okay, so my question is, do they have a financial component? Because I know that legislators will put forward bills that do not have a financial component because they are easier to pass. And this particular one has a financial component to assist us with our mental health programs. So I'm asking.
President Garcia Morales, members of the board, Brad Keating for the record. My current understanding early on in the process for the next legislative session is that the bills we're aware of right now do not have dollars tied to them. Leadership is looking at something mental health related, but I don't know if that will have financial dollars.
Thank you.
Trustee Bustamante.Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. My question has to do about the teacher retention, recruitment, retention, and development. I know that we, in a short amount of time that we've had our new HR director, we have made progress. And thank you for the interim superintendent's leadership in that category, because we didn't have to pass legislation to make improvement, but I think there are some things in this category that could help. And so my question is, do you get together with the HR team in order to address this area. That's one question. Number two, in the past, I have heard that both our team and CCEA and maybe some of the other bargaining units would get together to talk about, right, how to strategize around these areas. And so my question is, does CCEA, in their thoughts about bill drafts, is that one of them, the teacher recruitment, is that something that they're going after? I don't know if you guys gathered with them in order to find that out. And then that was it. Those are just two questions. Do you get together with our HR team regarding the first suggestion, if we are making strides? Two, do you get together with the CCEA team and to identify if there's some synergy? And then third, I know that public comment, there was last legislative session where we formalized teacher pipeline. Now, it had some, not every piece of legislation is perfect, and so it has challenges. And so instead of recreating the wheel, how do we fix that one to make it more conducive to the region and exactly what we want? We can't do it all just in one calendar year. I think that was part of the flaw, but I don't know if somebody submitted a BPR yet to make changes to that. Thank you.
President Garcia Morales, trustees, in terms of Dr. Brenda Larson's initial top story for the record. So input was gathered from each of the department heads, including HR, in the development of the platform and the installation to the topics that you chose here to get us to this stage in this conversation. We do work with bargaining units and understand what each other are trying to accomplish for the legislative session, so that we are, where we can, working together, not always aligned, but try to talk different ideas about how to approach things. And then, so including CCEA, ESCA, these we work very closely throughout the legislative session to ensure much alignment as is possible.
Thank you, Trustees Worksession. Did you already provide your top two, or you just about? Maybe I should have asked.
I did last time provide my top two, but I would hearing strategy now. I did to get more wins and so that people can get on the coast.
Do you have it would serve this round to be able to provide staff direction in terms of which are your top two?
Thank you. For me, my top two would be the teacher recruitment, retention and development, and bullying. I do believe that mental health has a financial component, and it is harder to have something when you have a fiscal note. And I think there might be some, especially in teacher recruitment, there's existing language that could be modified, and I think we would have a better strategy working with other entities. So teacher recruitment, retention and development, and adjusting the legislation on board.
Thank you. Trustees versus again.
Thank you. So I wrote out my questions. I have questions for each. So kind of echoing what Trustee Guzman was saying about the first one for teacher recruitment retention. And I know you don't have the number, but I think it's important when we go in, what is going to be our ask. So I'm just going to ask the question, what would be the ideal level of funding that CCSD would receive, and how would CCSD expand and diversify programs with that funding? I think that's the part where is a challenge for us because we don't know that number. Okay, so I don't expect an answer. Second question, topic 2 for bullying. So the wording of this is very specific. It does say to, I'm just gonna read it if anyone is listening, support updates to bullying statutes allowing students with substantiated discrimination, cyberbullying, or bullying incidents to be transferred to a different school rather than the victim, and clarify that the statutes are administrative. There are times and situations that maybe it's the victim that would rather be transferred to have a fresh start in a different setting. So what I guess my ask would be is that something that we can consider to amend and adjust, that there are both options. One is for the victim to be transferred, which I'm sure is probably an option on, or maybe you can answer that for me. Is that an option currently?
President Garcia.
Dr. Larson, thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, Brenda Larson mentioned for the record, yes. So it may be that the victim may have the opportunity to choose a different school. It may be that the offender has an opportunity to choose a different school. So they both have options, because there are times when the offender may want to go to a different school as well. So we can definitely include the may in there to give schools options. When we look at the number of substantiated bullying allegations that we have, to automatically be transferring kids would be too much. And could be chaotic and cause more problems. So yes, thank you.
Thank you for that, interim superintendent. I appreciate that. Then the last question for the third is, there's definitely a financial ask. And I think the clarification and sentence 2, improve access to mental health services through coordinated efforts and provide financial assistance for families affected by mental health issues. My question is, are we providing the funding for families to receive Tier 2 and 3 mental health services, or are we providing the funding directly to school sites to be able to provide those services for students?
Madam President, Trustee Interim Superintendent Dr. Brenda.Zamora. So in the conversation that we had during the board briefings, is that there are identified needs within the Tier 2 and Tier 3 mental health report. I think the intent of the conversation was to address those specifically. How that's addressed, whether that's through this collective effort or the funding would allow to get that support one way or the other, to obtaining those services somehow.
Thank you for that. I think I'm going to put in my top 2 now. Just let's get this down. I actually have a change of opinion. Having looked at some of the drafts that are out there, that number 1 is definitely going to be considered by someone, and many perhaps. So my top 2 would be number 1, mental health, and then number 2, with those adjustments that were discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Trustee Sargent. Trustee Lovisa.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm sorry, but I didn't hear what Trustee Ramona, as far as the South African her number 2 was.
My number 2 was the bullying.
It was bullying. Thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Keating, and Mr. Story, for putting up all of our questions during briefings. I know I asked a lot of them, and Mr. Story, you very explicitly and correctly stated what my concerns were, with mental health. First of all, this is what is stated right now is not exactly what my request was, so I'll read what it was as I basically talked to you during the briefing. I know that it was really hard, and our president is trying her best to try to get everything down, correctly. But basically what I was asking for was a collaboration with community partnerships to provide access for on-site mental health counseling targeting tier 2 and tier 3 issues with kind of a subtopic that even regional hubs would be an acceptable option. And then we had a discussion having to do with that we do have mental health services right now. We have Panorama, which is basically a surveying service. We have Care Solace, which is a referral service. And we have Hazel Health, which provides telehealth. So something I wanted to ask our experts right here is I did ask a question having to do with previous bills that touched on bullying. Also, you know, if you had a chance to look back at those, because I am receiving questions saying, well, didn't we cover that already? Your bill draft is so specific, you know, talking about as far as the victim being able to go to their school. So I'm getting questions about that. Were you able to look back and see if any of those previous bills could basically be seen as already covering that?
Garcia Morales, trustee, interim superintendent, Brenda Mitchell, tell the story for the record. Yeah. Trustee Cavazos, we looked at later on in the statute, there is language that says essentially the least burden on the victim, right? Whatever plan is developed to address the situation that the victim should be held, you know, with the least harm because of the outcome. And so in seeking to draft language, we would want to provide that option that if it's substantiated, that then maybe is the terms of maybe that the offender is moved for the victim. That choice is allowed within the confines of the decision.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. So I need to say something here, and that's that, you know, we're talking about bullying, especially cyberbullying, which is so prevalent right now. So many of the referrals that I get, so many of the referrals that our social workers, psychologists, or counselors get are concerned with bullying. So I'm looking at this here as where we're looking at bullying, the specific item having to do with bullying and the victim, and not looking at the larger concept of the mental health on-site services now not being provided at our school sites unless the school sites can afford and do choose to fund it themselves. So I'm kind of looking at bullying as a larger sense of that. I did get a chance this past weekend to chat with a couple of legislators. Things are kind of close mapped as far as just specifics not being provided right now. They are asking why we are not, you know, covering that aspect. Tier 2 and tier 3 mostly have to do with self-harm and suicidal ideation. They also have to do with sometimes harm intended for others. So I would have to say that my top 2 would be teacher recruitment and retention and mental health. Not because I don't think that the bullying aspect is important, but I'm looking at that as a component of the larger mental health aspect. And also too, with the teacher recruitment retention, again, kudos to our interim superintendent and HR for a great effort on recruitment. But I think we really need to pay attention to the retention factor. You know, why are people leaving? How can we retain them? And what can be done in that aspect? Thank you, Madam President.
Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President.
For you in here, sorry.
I was looking at the BDR list, and the amount of BDR we have on provisions relating to education is a little overwhelming, so I'm gonna give you all the flowers now because it's gonna be a long session. But I do agree with Trustee Cavazos about the mental health when we spoke about it at the last meeting. I had a different understanding that it was going to be more focused on how we get resources in the schools. I do want to say that I do appreciate the district, the crisis teams, when there is something major that happens and we have a large group of people going into the schools and they're there for a few days, you know, supporting, but I would love to see that be expanded. But as of now, what we have presented to us, my top 2 would be the teacher recruitment, retention and development, and mental health.
Thank you. Points we have haven't heard from a couple of members regarding the top 2. Trustee Williams?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm gonna go with the top two. Like you said.
Top two on this list, meaning teacher employee.
Yep.
Thank you, Trustee Satori.
Yes, I'm gonna go, so can I just clarify, because I wanna make sure I understood what you said correctly, so you said that the blame component is already covered. Has been covered.
President Garcia Morales, trustees, interim superintendent, Dr. Brenda.Zamora. The current statute indicates that the victim is the one that can choose to be moved. So what we would be seeking to do is to offer the broadest options within the confines of the circumstances that if the victim does want to be moved, that might be the best answer. But if they don't want to, then there's the option available to move the offender. The law currently doesn't allow that. It only says that the burden should be released on the victim in the service.
Some conversation earlier about some of the news. I guess I'm gonna go with a, and I suppose that will become more the teacher recruitment, retention development, it will become more fine-tuned as we actually present to get more of a specific, what we ask from us, rather than more general actually try. So I'm gonna go with number one, teacher recruitment retention, with that saying we're refining that on focus on how that's utilized. And then number two.
Thank you, Trustee Satori. Everybody. Trustee Guzman.
I'm going to go with teacher recruitment and mental health.
I believe you just say mine. For the reasons listed, shared earlier by colleagues and the explanation around the additional resources that are absolutely necessary. I am not in favor of, I am in favor of additional supports for students who have the highest needs, of course, first and foremost. And I think in a broader context, I'm more supportive of I would be supportive of increased funding, which you know the district has already shared. Increased funding to help us adequately fund programs that students or families need. However, that is a higher priority, and indicating that I don't want to take away resources for a specific piece of the work when there could be resources spread out throughout the district for challenges that exist in our community. So for me, my top two are teacher recruitment with the publication that was provided and recommended by trustees. Okay. Do we have accounts and do you want to review what you have, please? Thank you, colleagues. Will we take a moment to allow to read over the numbers? One, two, everyone is cross-checking here. We've got a couple of folks. Thank you for that. Trustee Guzman.
Yeah, so I voted for teacher recruitment, retention and development, and then mental health.
Sorry, what do we have? Final results?
Yes, President Garcia Morales, trustee, interim superintendent. We have 8 for teacher recruitment and retention. We have 6 for bullying, and we have 4 for mental.
Thank you. This time, colleagues, I will seek a motion from the board for the top 2. Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to move forward our bill draft request for teacher recruitment, retention and development and bullying.
Thank you. Trustee Williams.
I second.
Thank you, colleagues. We have a motion on the floor by trustee Brooks. And a second by trustee Williams. Please cast your vote. Is there confusion on the floor? Do you want to tell on the mic? I'll be 1 second. We're gonna pause this vote. On the microphone, trustees. Let's see this stuff. Let's start. Let me just. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. I apologize for asking. You had mentioned we were doing the motion, but I had heard something about with the bullying. It was going to be with the caveats or suggestion that trustee Sparks again has said. Is that not included in this motion? It is. Okay, it is. What part is? I think she had mentioned something about the language changing. I think Lola knows what I. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you, thank you. So you're, one of the motion restate. Let's see, trustee Brooks, please restate your motion.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me fine tune that. I'm going to make a motion to put forward our bill draft request for teacher recruitment, retention and development and bullying with the additional language the board discussed, building and flexibility.
Thank you, trustee Brooks, trustee Williams.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Williams. Colleagues, we have a motion by trustee Brooks, a second by trustee Williams. Please cast your vote. Perfect teamwork. All right, colleagues, you 7-0. Thank you very much, Mrs. Story. Thank you, Dr. Keating, for your time. I appreciate all of your work and your continued work. Colleagues, we are now going to move on to item 2.3. This is not an action item. It's a bond oversight committee. Oversight committee representative is Trustee Brooks. And we'll turn it over to Trustee Brooks to walk us through some of updates.
Thank you, Madam President. As you know, I recently joined Bond Oversight. When I joined, they were in the process of revising their bylaws. After I joined, I met with my committee appointee. She had some concerns about the functioning of the group. It became clear at that time that there was a little bit of confusion between the group and staff. So after this meeting, I read the committee's bylaws, and then I also read the GP 14, which is the board's policy related to committee structure. Once I did that, it became very clear that the confusion in the committee is related to the fact that their bylaws do not align with board policy and how committees are supposed to function. And also they were missing some key processes and some things that might be beneficial to be included, like for instance, if the school is going to be closed or something, that they are kept into the loop. So some things were just glaringly obviously missing. Also in their bylaws, I learned that the board is supposed to be providing them training. And to my knowledge, the board has never provided them training during my tenure. So given this information, I actually committed to work with the group to help them add clarity and to make sure that they're included in key decisions that are related to providing oversight of bond funds. So I wanted to give the boards a heads up that on a future agenda, we will be focused on providing them some very basic governance training, and their executive leadership team will be working to resolve the issues within their bylaws. I'm trying to find an external person from another district to provide the training. If that's not an option, I offer to do it, but I am trying to find someone who's through. That this update is just for the sake of transparency, because some of these changes are going to come to a future agenda item, which falls under open meeting law. I can try to answer your questions, but I can't go into specifics about what changes would be in the bylaws or other things that would be voted on by this committee.
Thank you for that update, Trustee Brooks, and for your time and attention to ensure the committee is successful. Don't see any questions on this item, so I just see it.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Trustee Brooks, for your update. We appreciate it. What would you say was the most glaring, aspect, as far as being the new member, the new trustee representative on oversight, that you saw the need that, you know, that we needed to do some updates with it? I'll let you answer. It's my view.
There seemed to be a lot of confusion about whether or not Lundy Elementary would come before them. Once I researched the issue, it doesn't come before them because we have a policy that doesn't include them. So if it is the expectation that it's something that they would want to come before them, that's something that would need to be spelled out in the bylaws.
Thank you for that, I appreciate that. So the Lundy issue was kind of like the glaring kind of red flag.
There were some other red flags, but that will be addressed during our policy.
Okay, thank you. When you say that you are searching for an outside person to do that, as far as the training I believe you're referring to, where are we looking for an outside person?
It would be an external board member, a board member from NASB, most likely.
Thank you very much for the clarification, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee.Zamora.
Oh, thank you, Madam President. I was going to ask, would that be something we reach out to NASB about and ask for support?
Yeah, that's something that's
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Brooks. That concludes your presentation and this item. This is not an action item. We are not taking public comment on this particular item. We're gonna move on to item 2.4, the Debt Management Commission. That is also not an action item. I am going to contact. So colleagues, for GP 15, the board committee's policy, a member of the board of trustees is assigned, voted in, by the board, by the majority of the board, to the Debt Management Commission. And they also happen to serve on the Southern Nevada Regional Planning Commission. One member served on both. And I was appointed by you, the board, last month. So thank you for that. I'm hoping to provide you a high level overview of this commission and why it's important, and also go into just some things that my intention is to share knowledge with you, because sometimes these committees are obscure and don't really, we're not sharing them with each other. They can just go other ways. The Debt Management Commission is board voted last month, and I again remember. I do want to share with you that right after I was appointed by the board, I participated in my first meeting on July 11th. On July 11th, the Debt Management Commission met, and they apparently meet several times, but just a couple of times a year, 2 times a year. This meeting that took place on July 11th was a special meeting where the Debt Commission heard about heard a bond issue for CCSD, or request for approval of bonds for CCSD. That was $600 million, and they heard another item for a couple of items for the water district. There is another meeting that's coming up on August 29th at 9 a.m. and I will pass them along with our CCSD representatives and Zion Financial. They help us generate reports to ensure that we have bonds and bond ratings, and ensure that all of the requirements are necessary to all the requirements that are necessary for us to request bonds exist. So we had this meeting on July 11th, and I want to share with you that the district requested $600 million for construction projects. And while the bond request did not get approved at this meeting, it is expected that this item will come back on August 29th. I want to point to the meeting that took place on July 11th, the minutes for the meeting and the recording and the actual minutes are available on the county's website. minutes and recording. So I hope to have an update for you on the 29th at that time. With a favorable response of the debt commission's, debt management's commission. Funding approval of CCSD $600 million for bonds. So I'm happy to entertain any questions at this time, colleagues, and grateful for the opportunity to serve. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to thank you and Trustee Brooks for your reports tonight, and hopefully this is a new trend that we can have with having the other members of the board being able to report on their committees also. I will volunteer also. Thank you.
You're next, Trustee Cavazos. I love it. Thank you for that. Let's have that meeting, September meeting. Trustee Guzman.
Thank you, and thank you for this update. It kind of puts together a couple of puzzle pieces that I heard at the Lundy meeting. Is Lundy the reason why we were not approved?
Thank you for that, Trustee Guzman. It was a request that was made of public comment to at the Debt Management Commission's meeting. Public comment was made to specifically request delay or denial of bonds so that the district could have an opportunity to make a final determination on lending. And in the minutes, specifically on page 12, after I had made the motion, the chairperson mentioned that the school board has not made a final determination, specifically on lending yet, but we should give them an opportunity to make a determination. And that seemed to have, there was a long, large discussion on lending, despite lending not being agendized potentially and part of the bond cost. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. Do we have any historical information on whether or not we've ever had this occur before? Or is this a normal situation?
There has been another instance where the bonds for the district were denied. There was even the actual number of dates and time, but when it was last denied, there was there is some historical insight. This is a very rare occasion, and this time it was brought specifically over one school.
Thank you. And then another question is, do we have any idea of the potential impacts to construction or modernization projects in schools that are not lending?
Right, so if the debt commission, for example, does not pass our request, our clear request for bonds on August 29th, that means that the district will not be able to fund construction projects or have any new bills or make any modifications or changes that were expected for the bonds resources. So unfortunately, I have no indication of whether it will be something that takes place, but a lot of people may be impacted with their jobs and of course with respect to our students, the construction project that impact our students $600 million worth.
Thank you. I appreciate the additional insight.
Colleagues, thank you for that, and I will keep you posted after August 29th once the meeting takes place. We're going to move on to item 2.5. That's Lundy Elementary School. This is an action item. So before I continue with this item, I would like to invite anybody who has not completed public comment cards to please submit those. Otherwise, we'll hear. Otherwise, once the presentation begins, we will go ahead and no longer take cards. We do have 2 individuals who signed for public comment. Go ahead and get maybe some more. That's yeah, see? Wonderful. All right, colleagues. colleagues, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Larson Mitchell, who will take us off the presentation. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, for the record, Brenda.Zamora. After the June 27, 2024 regular board meeting, staff was tasked to explore alternative solutions to allow the school to remain open. The team is here this afternoon to share the actions we have taken since that time and to describe some of the possible options. We began meeting with community members and dignitaries, and Region Superintendent Tomlinson contacted parents and guardians regarding the upcoming school year and educational options. During our presentation, we will review the reference materials that were posted, both reference materials A and B. And at this time, with your permission, Madam President, I will turn the presentation over to Ms. Tomlinson.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Lindsay Tomlinson, Region 1 Superintendent for the record. I want to begin by sharing with you the progress to date since the June 27th regular board meeting. After that board meeting, I and the staff in Region 1 contacted all parents and guardians on June 28th regarding the upcoming school year and their educational options. Throughout the month of July, I worked to ensure every student was enrolled for day one, working through the change of school assignment and other options. I communicated with the Transportation Department in regards to Regulation 3535, which provides an opportunity to receive payments in lieu of transportation due to extraordinary circumstances for those students who would qualify. As of right now, I want to provide the current enrollment status of all students. As of Friday, August 2nd, 2024, there are 5 students enrolled through the change of school assignment option. 2 students have been enrolled in a magnet school within CCSD. 1 is enrolled at Indian Springs Elementary. 1 has left to charter school, and 1 is no longer enrolled in CCSD. Transportation has been confirmed that there will be an adult on the bus to supervise all students that are going to Indian Springs, and all parents who are eligible through the COSA process to receive payment in lieu of transportation were provided the documentation on August 5th, 2024. At this time, Assistant Superintendent Brenda.Zamora.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Brenda.Zamora, Assistant Superintendent, Construction Development Division, for the record. So on July 8th, 2024, I met up with the Clark County School District building official, the Clark County building official, and deputy building official. After a brief walkthrough of the dam structure and made a review of the engineering assessment report that was conducted in September of 2023, the Clark County building officials verbally indicated the Clark County School District building officials' determinations were on the safety and necessary repairs were consistent with what they would expect as an allied municipal agency. Second, the cost estimate as a part of the engineering damage assessment conducted in September of 2023 was performed by a firm called Ritter-Levitt-Bucknell RLB. These guys are one of the most prominent independent construction cost estimating professional services companies in the world. RLB estimated the cost of the work in September 2023 dollars to be approximately $5.357 million dollars. Sorry. I know there was a lot of discussion around that when we last met, so we certainly wanted to obtain second opinions. Martin Harris Construction has a very long-standing relationship with the district, and they were the ones that performed the emergency stabilization work back in September of 2023. So I provided the damage assessment report and the RLB cost estimate to Martin Harris Construction to obtain a second opinion of the estimated costs for the necessary repairs. Martin Harris in July 2024 dollars concluded that that same scope of work would cost approximately $6.8 million inclusive of low voltage improvements not captured in RLB's estimate. Another item that was brought up in our last meeting was portable classroom structures. So on that topic, the Mount Charleston area is known as a special structural region. And as such, 100 pounds per square foot of snow loading must be engineered to be permitted at this location. Unfortunately, all the portables currently owned by the district are engineered to withstand 20 to 30 pounds per square foot of snow load on the roof structure. Now, the district certainly explored the availability of portables for purchase that would meet the necessary snow load requirements. They do have a cost premium and they would have to be transported from other mountainous regions such as Colorado, Alaska, or specifically manufactured with a build time of over 4 months from an executed contract. Another item that was brought up was Extreme Cubes. They are a modular structure manufacturer over in Henderson. It was brought up as an alternative that could potentially sustain the required structural snow loads. And a public commenter made mention that they were willing to partner with the district. I connected with the CEO of Extreme Cubes the week following our last meeting. And while they would be thrilled to provide a quote for the district, no additional discussions or declarations had been made by the CEO as far as what was indicated by the public commenter. So at this time, I would like to pass it to assistance.
Thank you, Brandon. Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Brad King for the record. On July 18th, 2024, Dr. Larson Mitchell and members of the executive team observed the exterior of the Earl B. Lundy Elementary School building. Brenda Talley, a community member, also toured with us the outside and exterior of the building. The team also that day visited the Las Vegas Carter County Library District's Mount Carlson location. There is a suitable conference room there, which could work as a short-term instructional space, if agreeable. The team also visited the retreat on Charleston Peak. This is one very large conference space immediately adjacent to the bar and restaurant. There's a smaller conference room available as well down a very dark hotel corridor, presenting numerous safety challenges for our students, especially bathroom-wise. Last, the team visited Mount Carlson Baptist Church. There's a large main congregational space of the church. The site has numerous clearings where a modular classroom building may be suitable at the space. However, the use of Mount Carlson Baptist Church may be a bit more difficult due to insurance, risk management, or other legal concerns.
Thanks, Dr. Keating, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Larson Mitchell. We also took some time to investigate external opportunities for funds to help support the repair or some of these other options that we've been looking into. Of the possibilities we looked at, we were most hopeful about a program that was offered or is offered by the United States Department of Agriculture, which is called the Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program. However, when we reached out to the USDA and had a conversation with them, they suggested that it would be unlikely that we would qualify for a grant through that program because the district would have had to have first attempted traditional means of financing and been denied. And in addition, the criteria for approval on the grant side of the program prioritizes low-income rural communities, which Mount Charleston is not. So after some of these different analyses, we met with members of the Mount Charleston community at Mount Charleston Library. Some of what I'll share with you this afternoon is also memorialized in one of your reference materials, 2.05B. But I'll speak it to the record as well. After a significant question and answer period, Dr. Larson Mitchell and Mr. McLaughlin introduced the proposed solution to build a 2-classroom addition to the Mount Charleston Library as a permanent solution for Lundy Elementary School. The community's general response to the library addition was favorable, but only as a temporary solution. So in summary, the staff interpretations of the community's response is that it was abundantly clear to us that the community wishes for Earl B. Lundy Elementary School to be repaired with a possible future option of expanding from serving kindergarten through grade 5 to pre-kindergarten through grade 8. In addition, the community wants students to attend school on the mountain as soon as possible, if even in a temporary location. As through the conversation, we learned that there is some skepticism remaining in the community regarding the cost estimates, some of the safety declarations we've made, and safety mitigation of the existing site, as well as the methods for determining some of those pieces. And also a request was made for the Clark County building officials' opinion in writing. The community believes the Mount Charleston Baptist Church to be the best solution for the temporary instruction on the mountain, as the facility already has classrooms and kitchen access. Though less favorable, using the existing library space would also be acceptable as a temporary solution. During our discussions, Trustees Bustamante-Adams and staff who were there made sure the community understood several specific points.
First, that neither staff nor individual trustees could make any commitments because the decisions would be made by the full board. Second, that the district would not be recommending the library additions as a temporary solution, and then also recommend the repair of the school. And third, that we understood it to be more difficult to use the Mount Charlton Baptist Church than a library as a temporary solution due to some insurance, risk management, or legal concerns that are a little more challenging when it comes from a non-existing government property. Mr. Laughlin.
Kelly, Madam President, members of the board, interim superintendent Mitchell, Brenda for the record. A mutually beneficial opportunity would be to partner with the Los Angeles Clark County Library District, and the district could build 1 to 2 classrooms on the library's current building full of classes on the mountain. The way we see this possible is to utilize the remaining $750,000 of insurance proceeds to fund a portion of this, and the district would likely need to provide an additional $700,000 in addition. The district would still need to properly remediate and potentially demolish the unsafe structure current school site for an additional several $1 million. We don't know the full extent of the necessary remediations at the current site in totality. The district could utilize general obligation bonds, bond funds to revise the 2015 capital improvement plan to repair the existing school at an estimated cost of, like I mentioned, $6.8 million in today's dollars, and of course, subject to actual bids received and reported by. I do want to run through reference material 2.05A that was provided to you on the screen here. You guys have the handout available. We'll walk through it very briefly. This is the 2 predominant options that surfaced throughout many explored options discussed here tonight. The 2 that stood out to staff as we discussed and presented throughout the last 6 weeks. On the left-hand side, you see the repair the existing Early London Elementary School. We look at the common components on the left-hand side. On the y-axis, you see the general proposed scope would be the assessment scope provided in the 134-page assessment report provided across the community and to the board now. The anticipated construction costs, like I mentioned, will be estimated at $6.8 million. The estimated time frame is through a design build procurement method. We see a path that could see the repair is made as early as fall 2025. The proposed delivery method, like I mentioned, the most suitable for this would be likely design build project delivery method. The proposed funding would be Fund 315, which is our general obligation bond issuances. And the necessary approvals at board's discretion, though you guys exercise consideration with the bond oversight committee recommendation, but the bond oversight committee could see that as an item, but likely Board of School Trustees has the ability to. On the right-hand side, just again running the parallel, but solution number 2, which is to explore an agreement for construction and addition at the Mount Charleston Library for Early London Elementary School. Again, this would be currently proposed at 2 classrooms in the generalized scope. We project this to cost approximately $1.4 million. Again, that's in 2024 dollars and dependent on bid and selection and report by the board. Again, we see this time frame being as early as spring of 2026. The design build methodology would still be an appropriate methodology for this to have a rapid deployment of a construction solution up there. I will emphasize there is a with or without bridging documents. So bridging documents is a way to take any proposed solution to a more schematic design level. With that, you refine the scope, you ensure a more competitive pricing environment. So say a ulterior differentiation you guys may want to consider as we discuss this item. Again, this would be utilizing Fund 15 general obligation bonds. And again, the Board of School Trustees could make that. With that, turn it over to Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you. Give me, I'm sorry. Please come back in the queue. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. For the record, Brenda.Zamora.Adams. We hope that this information is helpful, and we're happy to address any additional questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we're gonna go straight into public comments. And then, jump into discussion by the board. So let's see, we'll begin with individuals who signed up in advance. Christian Giuliani, please, followed by, I'm sorry, Keith Darlin. Darlin. You'll go next.
This is Jim Kiliani. I want to thank interim superintendent and her staff for coming to the mountain, holding meeting finally with the community up there, and I want to thank trustees Satori and Guzman, who came and spent the time to listen to us. Now hearing this briefing, I feel like I've been blindsided, so I'm not really quite sure how to address some of the concerns. This graph, which just got posted before your meeting, is missing a column, and it should say insurance rebate. You got insurance money in January to repair. If you don't agree with the repairs, or if the repairs are not completed, you could still go back to that insurance company and ask for additional revenue. That's just how the standard works. More importantly, though, the community wants the kids back on the mountain. So the solution was come up, divide the library room, or use the church. An MOU with the church can be done very easily. You do church holds church on every high school campus already in Clark County School District, so it's not something to oversee. If you needed to do a portable, you could add that to the church, and the portable there does not need the snow load. The snow load is only up in the central part. It isn't where our metro station, literally right next door to them, is not made up of the snow load. I'm frustrated because you paid $120,000 in September and hired an assessment team to go in and do the inspection on the building. They then contracted with Wright Engineers, who's #1 engineering company in the United States. And what they said in their report, Wright Engineers said, after the temporary fixes were done for $125,000 by Martin and Harris, in our professional opinion, the main structure may be occupied when the temporary measures supporting the storage room are completed. That was done. And you would receive the funding. So why are you not doing a column that says, do the repairs that you got refunded for? If you need more money, ask the insurance money for more. I have to report back to the governor's fund. Because he's weighed in, our congressman's weighed in, the state senator's weighed in, the assembly person's weighed in, pre-open Lundy. We can work together. I'm frustrated now because I don't know that we got resolved with the solutions. We had the temporary solution, which it sounds like you might be able to get there tonight, but not the other. And as I gave Ms. Tomlinson, because they asked at the meeting, I went to every parent, got the home phone numbers and the parent's name. We have 14 kids that could be in your pre-K to 2, and your 3rd to 4th graders would be 13 kids this school year. So I still don't know why you're doing this pushback. And I don't want to hear that it's just because it's white kids, because I know that that's floating around in the district. That has nothing to do with it. The reason I went and testified on the bond and asked them to delay or deny it, because that wasn't me, was because we're the highest taxing district in the county. And we will be paying for an asset that is closed, and they asked some tax questions that have not received. To listen to the parents, they each do the right thing.
Thank you, Chris.
Talk to them.
Please. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Pete Kamada, followed by Ed Gonzalez. Pete, is Pete here? Not here, all right. I'm looking for a Pete. Yes, sir.
Could I be proxy for Pete?
Forgive me, no, I'm sorry, that's the case. Did you submit a yellow card?
I'm senile old man, chairman of the town advisory board. I want to thank the people for coming.
Thank you, I'm sorry, I need to be consistent with all public comment, and so I did ask for members of the public who had an interest in being public comment, please submit a yellow card. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna move on to Ed.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Brenda.Zamora, Mitchell, members of the board. For the record, my name is Ed Gonzalez. I came here to thank the superintendent and her team for going to Mount Charlton. That was a lot of the contention when this item came to the board, is that that had not happened. We've had in the past, as I mentioned in a previous meeting, when we had the topic of school closures, we had that conversation, I think in 2008, when we talked about places like Good Springs being extraordinarily tiny, and that was during the time of the Great Recession. We had a budget deficit. So I do appreciate that, because I think that's one thing that the community wanted, was to have a voice. I still think it's a little troublesome that you have a policy that you can shut down the school without everybody in the community. In the same aspect, as you did a zoning change with something down the hill, you have been forced to have a community meeting, and that's absolutely absurd. I would look at it and talk about, Trustee Brooks mentioned things up on oversight and some of the updates. You might want to look at it, because you did recently update that. And I feel like it was a situation where you looked at the policy because we're probably going to a vote. That's one thing. Two, when you talk about costs, there's additional monies that Buddy does have. In one of the budget reports that was put a mandate right before 69, it's about $400,000 in that budget. I think carryover. And in one of the SOT meetings, and I should say it was a Lundy and Indian Springs SOT. So Lundy hasn't had a functional SOT since I believe 2018. And Lundy doesn't go to Indian Springs, but one parent they have on that. By the way, none of that conforms to law. But in one of those documents, it said it could be as high as $500,000. I only put that in there because it's in there. Mr. Gowdy could probably give a better explanation, because he did say one of the meetings you had two different budgets on there. And the reason, obviously, because it's a small school, you have small overall allocation, you're keeping two different votes on it. So additional money that could be used could come from the carryover after that. But I mostly am here just to thank the superintendent for having that conversation, because regardless of what the decision is, it's good to have the conversation in the community. Trustee Zamora mentioned in the meeting when you first had it, it was viewed differently than the other communities have long bus rides. Because you made a commitment, I think in 1966, to build a school in this community. But you always want to have an opportunity to see, can you keep the kids up on that hill? I mean, there's other things I'm pretty sure Lenny's probably thinking about now, which is, should the kids even go to Indian Springs? You know, we talk about the time that Lenny was built, the closest high school was Western. I mean, I thought they had to go through the back roads and channels of buses to go that way. The bus drives by a lot of schools. But I don't live in Mount Charleston. That is not my option to say what they should do. But I'm pretty sure there's other ways for them, if they want to look at a broader aspect, to look at other things as well, just besides where people are going to school. But I do hope that you can find a way to keep the schools in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, I'm gonna turn it over to Trustee Usman. Trustee Usman. Please, hold on. Get me. Thank you. Turn back on the queue and
Thank you. I also want to thank my cohort, Lisa Satori, who sat with me in a very comfortable chair, and we actually did go up north. I do feel that this presentation was taken the wrong way, and that's because our staff has to give the facts, not what we actually feel about what was said on the mountain, and so that's my job. And I'm going to tell you. So when we went up there, we thought we had the solution. We truly did. And we were excited about it. And we wanted to tell the entire group about the 2 classroom add-on to the library. We were excited about that. And our staff was ready to tell them. And the Lundy folks turned it on us on a dime. And they decided that it would be great as a temporary and that we would fix Lundy. And I had to shut that down. And I had to let them know that we had 2 options. And those 2 options were, one, that we would have a temporary room at the library for a teacher to teach immediately at the to get started this year on the mountain, and then we would either build the 2 rooms onto the library or we would fix Lundy. But the thing was that with fixing Lundy, we were going to get bids for Lundy to see if it was even something that we could do, and that no decision would be made without talking to the trustees, none. There was no decision made, no one said anything, we just showed them the options. And the reason why we needed to get the bids is because the folks on Monday don't believe us. They don't believe any of the information we're giving because it's not in writing. And they want it in writing. And so once we had the bids, if the bids were too much and we could not afford it, we would go back and talk to the community and propose those solutions again. The thing is that we needed to bring it back to you to see if that was something that was feasible. We are not blindsiding you, Chris. But we needed to come back and tell you, and the staff did a fantastic job explaining to you exactly what happened with facts and not feelings, because there were a lot of people who had feelings that wanted us to just go and fix it. They wanted to pull up carpets. They wanted to pull down drywall. They were very passionate about it. But the staff of CCSD were very focused, and they knew that they had to follow certain rules and regulations, and they presented them. So I want us all to understand that the presentation, although it may sound like it's not taking into effect what we heard on the mountain, it absolutely is. And so I want you all to know that when you have your discussion, because we have to do this right. There are people that are very worried about their kids, and I get it. But I also get that we have a fiduciary duty as trustees, and we take that oath, and I take it very seriously. And so we have to do this right, but we have to know what we're doing. Okay, thank you. I'm not lecturing, I'm just telling.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Parsons-Strong, you're next.
So I want to echo the fact that I appreciate that the trustees and our interim superintendent went and had that hard, crucial conversation that should have happened probably the very beginning of this entire process. I think we would not be where we are today if that had not happened, but we're still here. And I am very concerned about the way that even this was shared with us as trustees, not to be able to have the opportunity to digest and absorb what the options were, because we were not privy to having that information for those that went to the mountain. So I just want to ask the question, what is the price of trust? What is the price of transparency in a community? And I can only use this card until probably December as a new trustee, I'm very concerned about the messaging that we've tried to convey to earn the trust back from the community. And schools are the hub of communities. Life happens in schools. So I will say to you that I see two options here. Option one, I would like to make a motion for solution one to repair the existing Earl B. Lundy Elementary School.
Thank you for that, Trustees Parsons-Strong again. And for your piece, I just want to clarify that members received thorough communication by the superintendent during bi-weekly meetings, and these solutions were shared, not for us. They're not recommendations, they are just solutions, which is what the trustees requested at last meeting. And they were reviewed and discussed at everyone's bi-weekly. I hope that everyone's heard it. Trustee Williams and Trustees Parsons-Strong, again, I hear your motion. I'm gonna go around and request based on who's in the queue, see if there's someone else who would like to second. And It looks like I'm gonna go ahead and just go down the queue. Trustee Williams?
I'm not gonna second that, I had a couple questions.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, did I miss the timeline? Why is, I guess the cheaper option, the lower cost option, later? Is this spring of 2026, whereas a full repair would be fall? Did I just miss something?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Williams, Brenda, for the record. Certainly, building onto addition has different parameters and making repairs to existing buildings, so we would have to go through land use entitlements, we have to go through an EDP permitting for the septic system, so it does have a longer time than just repairing these buildings.
And then I guess I know you guys have already worked like with permanent libraries or library. What's their, like, obviously they're agreeable to this. I mean, they seem like wanting to work in this long-term contract with CCSD. My only fear with that is that like 10 years down the road, or 20 libraries are like, we don't want CCSD. I guess how do you guys kind of work on that?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustee Williams, Brenda, for the record, we have had initial discussions with the Executive Director of Library District, and they did share an enthusiasm about it. It very much fits into their strategic long-term goals for schools and libraries, so I can't speak on their behalf of their total thoughts about it, but that's the initial ones that share.
That's kind of what I figured it would be too. I wasn't gonna second that motion. I was gonna make my own option too, but
See if we've got a, we'll keep going down the list and see if there is. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. I will like to second the motion, but we have questions. Thank you, Trustee Williams, because you hit a few questions that I had. But to clarify, yes, the executive director of the library district is in agreement, sounds excited, but at the end of the day, it's the board that will have to vote for it to be approved, correct?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustees Zamora, Brenda, for the record, through discussions with the executive director, I can't speak to the extent of authority the executive director has with his board, but it's something we would have to explore who has the authority within their organization.
So follow-up question, what happens if with their board, they don't agree, the executive director doesn't have the power, so what happens next if the option 2 is, you know, the option that we go with after this meeting? So does that extend more and comes back to the board? Like what happens with the library? It's like, actually, we don't want this partnership.
President, members of the board, Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustees Zamora. It certainly could, but I don't have any indication either way what the board of their organization would desire. Just our discussions have been with the executive director who indicated it's institutional. So yeah, it has a potential, but we don't know what their board's appetite is for it without their board meeting just scheduled for.
Thank you. And the last thing I have is just a comment. I've mentioned before, I think we missed a lot of opportunities, you know, with the community, and hope it's a lesson learned to everyone. But I don't like the idea of also extending this planning of what we're going to do next and what we're going to do next. It's a big risk, I think, going the library option. So I'm gonna stand on my second motion and thank you. I'm tired.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Zamora, for just your comments, you made a motion in the second. We just need to finish one first. Thank you. Trustee Satori?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. And yeah, it was wonderful to be able to come out and be able to hear from the community. So it was really great too. And that was a lot of what we had wanted really was to be able to hear the feedback, discuss some of these possible options, be able to bring it back to the boards when they were very appreciative of the seniors. It's been a great turnout. One question I had also was related to the timeline, because I was going through on that as well. Because my understanding, and maybe I had it wrong in my brain the whole time, was that it was 2 to 3 years for the repairs. This is actually fall next year, correct?
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Trustees Satori, yes, I think in a conservative light, This is just the as early as until a design build contractor proposes on the scope, that scope of work. We really don't have any hard estimate, just by general best practices and industry knowledge, we generally forecast it could happen as early as this.
Okay. So the temporary solution would be shorter than the temporary. So think that it's a shorter temporary option. Amount of time. So and then one thing related to the library. So and I did think as well, going up, I thought like that seems like a good option, is definitely lower cost buildings. But also after hearing the feedback and looking at it, seeing that the repair of lending is a better option, because just thinking of school environment long term, I mean, it has the better facilities, it has the kitchen facilities, it has the empty room. So putting those two classrooms, there's still not really a way for students, when it's cold and snowing and those sorts of things, to be able to get outside. But maybe even if you put a playground, I know it just doesn't quite have to stay. So I definitely could understand why the community said we really want our school repaired versus doing this option, and they were fine with it short term. And then the church option, I was kind of a proponent at first of, well, let's move forward with that, get them in the library now, and then maybe down the line we got to move. Not that we want to keep students over and over, but if it was going to take 2 to 3 years, I was like, let's explore that option along that way potentially. However, it seems like it would be a shorter repair time. I think that remaining in that library would be an option. But the families were very flexible of saying, like, we are fine with any of these options as on the mountain. I mean, really, that was the resounding communication of any of these are options, a portable, a church, the other locations, any of those are a better option versus the bus. And really, to me, it comes down to, I like a couple of comments of that, we made the decision to build this. We have a responsibility to our community. It was an emergency situation that was really not, we out of anyone's control. And then, but also just that, that there's also the safety concern. That's what I'm saying. I know as well, it is a small number of students, but it also is putting a small number of students at risk, having to, in the winter months, make that transfer, making that hike and all of those things. So that is why that way in support of repairing Lundy and utilizing the library as a temporary option. It does seem like they would be able to come in very quickly. The families were understanding of it would obviously not be Monday, but it could be very quick that we could get a teacher already up there that would be able to provide instruction. It could be a pretty quick temporary solution for them. So, and thank you for the motion and seconding.
Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Trustees Victoria. You saved me a lot of talking tonight. Thank you so much. I don't know if I missed this, but did we get a copy of? Thank you for all your work on this and your extensive explanations of the timeline and everything. Did we get to see a copy of the $6.6 million bid? Was that included anywhere?
Sent to us.
It was sent to us. Okay, my apologies for that.
I want to say that we received an email. I have
Of the actual bid?
of the estimate. I don't know what you mean by bid.
The final cost. And I may have missed it, whatever, I'm trying to get through all the material. I'm gonna go on to my questions. I did want to let the president know that I also would have been willing to second trustee as far as the Stockton's motion, and Trustees Zamora had not beaten to it. But I would have. I want to make sure that the public listening, I got a question that I was a little confused about my constituent, tried to kind of clarify it, and I wanted to check in with our return superintendent to make sure they gave the right answer. And the district is not asking us tonight as before. They are not recommending that we close the school. Is that correct, Dr. Larson Mitchell?
Madam President, members of the board, for the record, Brenda.Zamora.Adams, no, at this time, we're not recommending that we close Lundy. We were tasked with bringing forward solutions. These are the 2 solutions that were shared with trustees during their biweeklies. These were the 2 solutions that were shared with Mount Charleston. We listened, we learned, they did not want the addition to the library as a permanent solution. They were open to it as a temporary solution. And it was very loud and clear from the community that they want us to repair. They want their children up on the mountain as soon as possible. Staff is willing to work and look at a temporary solution, but this diagram represents what was shared in the biweeklies with trustees. This document represents what was shared with the community at the community meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Larson-Mitchell. That was very explicitly detailed, and I appreciate it, and going into the details. I would have to say that I also, I'm a little bit puzzled that that third column was not included for the sake of the public as far as the insurance information. I just think that there has been, as some of my colleagues have stated tonight, it's just that I think that there were some balls dropped along the way, probably unintentionally. I know that there was communication on a regular basis. I do know that from staff. It's just that there has not been, in my estimation, clear and consistent, very clear and consistent communication to the community until I think the communication on May 10th. I do know that staff was sending out messages in talking to members of the Mount Charleston community. I was told that the message basically just said that the school being closed was unsafe and that there was a timeline for that. If we went with the temporary solution of the library, I just, I'm kind of wondering whether we PE space, physical education space, a multi-purpose room or whatever. It seems to me that our best bet would be something like looking into possibly the church and, as a temporary solution while the school is being repaired. And it says here on here, I believe, that the use of Mount Charleston Baptist Church may be more difficult due to insurance, risk management, or other legal concerns. And I do appreciate the word may, because that sounds like maybe that is still a possibility that could be looked into. So at this time, I would have to say that I would have to go with agreeing with the motion as far as.
Thank you, Trustee. So thank you. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. A couple questions. One, can you remind us how the insurance claims were processed and how that process took place?
Mr. Dowdy?
Members of the board, interim superintendent, Dr. Larson-Mitchell, Jason Gowdy for the record. So insurance was processed during the recovery period after the disaster. We went through, they performed an assessment, and essentially we were awarded $1.5 million net of a $500,000 deductible at that time. That is, as is done. We, if we move forward with any additional construction, then we may be entitled to some additional compensation through insurance. However, of the original $5.5 or $5.3 million estimate that was performed, of that 4.5 was a large chunk of it, and of that 4.5, the insurance company had noted that 3.5 of that would fall outside of the insurance coverage because it wasn't part of the original necessary requirements.
Okay, so there's not a third option where insurance will cover the cost of removing the school?
No, there's.
Thank you. And then can you, are we planning to build a school in Sky Canyon? And if so, what is the timeline on that?
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Larson-Mitchell, Trustee Brooks, Franklin, for the record, it is currently in approval process with bond oversight committee being brought to the board with. It's currently slated for fall of 2028 as earliest.
Okay. And then can you remind me of, I know we have a lot of the students that are in 1D or in 3rd grade. So by the time one of these options comes to fruition, how many students will be attending 1D if they're currently? Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, Lindsay Tomlinson for the record. Trustee Brooks, it would roughly be if we went off of the fall 2025, we would be exiting at least another 2 students. So at this time, we would currently have 10 students enrolled up there, so we'd be down to 8. And then if it's over the next 2 years, we would be down to 5 at this time without upcoming pre-K and kinder that we aren't aware of. I don't have those names at this time, so I can't tell you how many we actually have coming forward, but that's what we'll be in the next couple of years. Thank you. I don't know if somebody from legal can answer this. Are you allowed to build a public school using public monies or like renovate a church? Are you allowed to have a public school on a church property?
Larson Mitchell, I turn it over to you, your team.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Irene.Bustamante for General Counsel.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent, President Mitchell, John. Our preliminary research into this question is no. There have been cases where limited use of churches for specific purposes on occasion have been approved by the lower court. There was one court that dealt with using a church auditorium for graduation. The court deemed it in violation of the Establishment Clause, and the Supreme Court said they were continued, which indicated that the Supreme Court was agreeing with that decision. Now, I will tell you that the Supreme Court has been completely reconstituted since that decision. There's a possibility based on the dissent that they may flip on that question. However, it's pretty clear that any case that they dealt with, they have certain, they are consistent that any use of a church has to be done in a way that there's cases. So not only separate entrances, but no intermingling. They cannot go onto any church, any part of the church that's still used for religious purposes. There cannot be any interaction between church personnel, students, not even saying hello in the morning. It really has to be separated. So if we are going to explore that as a temporary solution, I would probably go out to the church to see the actual layout and plan on how we would use it. But based on what I understand, I think it's going to be very difficult to make those separations. The last thing I will tell you is that we have already been sued twice by Freedom from Religion Foundation, and so I'm 100% confident that if we do this, then we have a decent chance of prevailing.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it. My last question is, you already placed the families of students or the students in other schools. Do you have any indication that those students would prefer to go to school in the church or the library versus going to a school that is comprehensive in nature?
Dr. Larson Mitchell.
Madam President, members of the board, at this time, we have not asked those parents if they would be interested in that. There were some parents, I believe, at the community meeting who expressed that interest. And I do want to say that Joe Caruso gave me a document from Chris G regarding the pre-K students right before the board meeting. So there are, it looks like 5 future pre-K students who currently are 2 to 3 years old. And then there are 8 who are currently 4 years old.
Thank you. I appreciate you answering my questions. I am not in support of building the school because I do recognize that we still have hundreds of millions of dollars that we are behind in other schools. And we do have a fiscal responsibility. My heart goes out to the people who live on Lundy, but I think the district has made their best effort to find a workable solution, which is what they were tasked to do. So I won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. I see we have Trustee Guzman and Trustee Cavazos in the queue. I've not had a chance to go.
May I thank you? And then I'll turn it over to you. Trustee Bustamante, Trustee Rosales, and then I'll call the vote, okay? All right. When it comes to the students who are currently on, I wanna clarify, Tomlinson, that the students who are currently reside in Mount Charleston are prepared to start school on August 12th.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, President Garcia Morales, for the record, Lindsay Tomlinson, Region 1 Superintendent. Yes, all of the students that are living up at Mount Charleston in that neighborhood have been provided an opportunity and are placed in a school and are ready to begin on Monday morning.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the intention and the efforts that has been put into redirecting and supporting the board and taking additional knowledge. Thank you, Dr. Larson Mitchell, for guiding this work as well. And I respect that this feels like a little bit of a pain point for our community and for our board and certainly for staff. I acknowledge that any balls were dropped, we have to be ready and willing to accept them ourselves as the board and not look to staff as scapegoats for said balls of drop. We have really tons of opportunities here to address future closings, which will take place in our community due to the the enrollment that's the lower enrollment in our district. And I am keeping that very much at the forefront of my mind, knowing that we will be having to face some really hard decisions across the entire district that may impact students. And given that we have an abundance of construction projects already in the queue, and we all receive those emails that say the alerts on a daily basis that say that AC is out in a specific school, or something went wrong with toilets. There's like tons of maintenance issues that exist in our current schools. And I am completely committed to ensuring that we do what's best for our students at Mount Charleston and who live in Mount Charleston while we continue to receive a quality education that's has a ton of options for them, and at the same time make sure that we are responsible with our resources. So I'm unable to support this motion. I would like to turn it over to Trustee Bustamante and Trustee Rosales for the call.
Thank you. I am concerned because going up on the mountain, I was able to speak to the members of the community. And this school is really important to them. I know every school is important. This school is really important to that community. And that community, we needed to do this right. And I even said that to Dr. Larson Mitchell. And I just want everyone to understand that this process started before we had an interim superintendent. Because I know that people are blaming Dr. Larson Mitchell for the process. Dr. Larson Mitchell is the one that is getting us out there to talk to the community. And so I want to make sure that everyone understands that, because through her leadership and the discussions, we wanted to do this right. And that is why we had the discussion on the different solutions and that they are in front of you. I am curious by not voting for the current the current motion that's on the floor. Does that make it, Dr. Larson Mitchell, does that make it that we will do the other option? I am just curious because we took off the table the fact that we were closing Lundy. We took that off the table, so that's not even an option. So by not repairing the existing school, does that mean that, solution 2 comes into effect?
I believe that we need to submit a motion.
I agree, but I want to ensure that that is, because what's not on the table is the closure. So that's why I was asking.
Madam President, members of the board, trustee Guzman, you are correct that the recommendation to close is no longer on the table. And I would refer to legal counsel regarding, the agenda item. The agenda item states that we need, direction, right, to know next steps for Lundy Elementary School.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would refer to Ms. Malich if I'm.
Thank you. It sounds like town lawyers, you agree. Can you please tell us the statement into the record?
Yes, I'm in support of what Dr. Larson mentioned.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, so that's it for now. We're gonna go ahead and take the motion. Is there any other additions?
Yeah.
Okay. Colleagues, my commitment to you is that we hear from you and then go into the vote, please. Trustee Cavazos.
I have no further questions or comments, Madam President. Thank you.
Trustee, no, you're, I'm sorry, that was very visual, sorry, you all. Trustees, attorney.
I apologize. I have one further question, because I want to make sure it's clear that on option 2, so in looking at the cost difference between the two, there's also the cost then of demolish or of doing something to Lundy. So looking at the difference, like I think option 2 is actually costing more than it might be perceived. So is it possible to say like an approximation in between 1 and 2, what cost difference we're looking at there? Taking all of that into account.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Mitchell, Brenda.Zamora, trustee Satori, Brenda.Zamora for the record. I'm not a demolition contractor, and I don't know if I would have a good enough sense. It's likely in the millions.
But at some point, I felt like there was a possible, and I understand it was an estimate, that there was an approximation of what that would cost. Was it just 500? Okay, so it was, you think it would be millions to demolish it? Because my point is, if we're to do the addition, we're paying the money for the addition, we're also paying to demolish, that all could be just put into, and us seeking any additional insurance money, that instead into repair versus a solution that is not so like just kind of thinking like where we're putting our money and what is the actual, like how much more are we really spending to do option, or how much would option 1 even be, or option 2, sorry, how much would the library addition actually be saving us versus just repairing?
Yeah, Madam President, members of the board, Mitchell, Satori, Brenda, for the record, I don't think it would. The differential between 6.8 and 1.4, I don't think the demolition costs would get you close to that. So yes, it would be somewhere between, but I don't think it would close.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, we have a motion on the floor. The trustees from Strawberry. Irene.Bustamante.Adams, to adopt the options and to repair the existing girls' lunch piece. Please cast your votes. Colleagues, that motion does not pass. With 3 yeas and 4 noes. At this time, I'm looking for another option, another motion. Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to make a motion. To adopt option 2 to build the library edition.
Thank you. Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll second.
Thank you. Colleagues, we have a motion on the floor by Trustee Williams, a second by Trustee Brooks. Please cast your vote. Dr. Larson Mitchell, I see that you came on. Allow me 1 second.
colleagues, we're gonna stop a little here so I can turn on the mic.
Madam President, members of the board, for the record, Brenda.Zamora.Mitchell, I just want to refer the board that is an exploring the addition to the library, right? I mean, that has not been solidified with the library, so we would be exploring that potential addition to the library. But there would still be a lot of work that we would need to do with that partner.
Thank you, Dr. Marshall-Mitchell, for that clarity. Do you also need clarity around the bridging documents for design build, excuse me?
Madam President, members of the board, Brenda.Zamora.Mitchell for the record, yes, please.
So trustee Williams, do you wanna consider that, take that into account your
Yes,
motion?
so, thank you, Dr. Lessons, for saying that. Because I recognize that we still don't even have an MOA with the library district. So I guess I should have expanded on that. So I guess I'll revise my motion to have the board direct the superintendent to, I guess, go into the exploratory mode of looking at this additional piece to the library, including working with the library district and bringing documents. Is that a good enough motion? Is that fair enough, or do you want me to add anything else to that?
Maybe you specifically request a design build.
Yeah.
Request a design build.
Yeah, so request a design build process for the exploratory library option.
Thank you. Brooks.
I still second.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, we have a motion on the floor by trustee Williams and by trustee Brooks to have the vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 4-3. Thank you. I hope that gives you direction to look into the next steps and exploring what's coming up, which I'm sure there will be another update at some point. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Public comment on items not listed as active items on the agenda. Before I open item 3.01, is there anyone who's not had a chance to complete a public speaker card? If not, please do so now. We'll begin with individuals who signed up in advance.
Mr. Darrow, Chairman of Charleston Town Advisory Board, Charleston Lumber. Dr. Brenda.Zamora.Mitchell, I don't have the chip in my head, they're all these people. Lisa, thank you for coming. Lisa, thank you for coming. You guys are trying to do it right, but you're being led down the garden path. 5.6 million into your whole budget is small potatoes. I know it. I'll be all. I want to thank you for your vote, primarily to not close it. We got a long way to go before we figure it out. These people throw the blow smoke up. They do. They don't bring us the numbers. They don't bring you the numbers. Please do your question work legit. He's incapable. Right?
Excuse me, please do not speak poorly about our staff. They work incredibly hard and we are not gonna take anyone speaking poorly.
They lost. I'll prove. That being said, I was a consultant for the district for 25 years. I know your staff is good. I work with modernization and rehab and construction. I'm a civil engineer by trade. I like you all. You got a tough job. But I'm intimidated by 12 women and just me. I'm shaking up here. That being said, that served no purpose other than to satisfy me. I want to work with you. We want the building. We can work with it and do it for a community center. We used to play basketball, we used to play badminton. It's a good facility. Now, I know 5.6 million may scare you, but we don't even know what the number is for the school in the library. It won't be as good of a facility, but we're willing to work with you. So I'm here to tell you. I know everybody on that mountain. We're willing to work with you. The state wants to work with us, the county wants to work with us. We want to work, so just help us work with it.
Chris Giuliani, come on up, please. Thank you, Christine Giuliani. Again, thank you to everybody. I should not use the term blind side. You were very clear about this board makes the decision, so I overinterpret, so please accept my apology. That said, we have not gotten anything in writing. We've been hearing numbers for 2 months now. If your own insurance company hired a secondary engineer to question the original #1 engineer in the United States, and they said the facility is safe, but internally your people decided they didn't want to reopen it, then how do we counteract? We're trying to save you money. We don't want it. We didn't ask for a rebuild. We asked you just to use your insurance money to repair what they said and then go back and ask for more if it didn't cover what you needed. You've done the majority of the work. It was completed in October. But Trustee.Bustamante.Adams, you had mentioned at the last meeting, you don't want to spend $6 million or whatever it might be. Where is that number? What was it? If it's not in writing, it does not exist. So you put us at a risk of not looking cooperative. We want to work with you, but we want our school reopened. And tonight cannot solve that. If you hate me, that's fine. This isn't about me. I don't have children, but I've been on the mountain for 42 years. Our community cares. And I think the 2 trustees saw that. They were physically very verbal, but they're a great group. And it's a community in and of itself. If you repair it, then I can go to the county and say, help us put a community center in. But if it's not repaired, they're not playing with us. And so that's part of the problem. You took Lundy off. Lundy, if there are issues internally that we didn't know about, your report, if you read it, says a lot of it was pre-existing conditions, that you did not maintain that facility, and it should have been on the revised CIP probably 3 or 4. It's a school over 40 years. I wrote that law. You should have had it, Lundy, being modernized and rebuilt years ago. That's all I was asking, we were asking for, is put it back on your CIP list, so it's in that mix. You could do a program there, you could make it K-12, you could put a forestry program in, you could have a true career path, you could do flora and fauna and train firefighters for emergency response. That school could become a true gem, and then you've got a pipeline of students that are going through it. But none of that was the discussion. It's been about money, but the money's not been truthful. The assessment that you never even got as trustees until I asked for a FOIA, you didn't even know existed. They paid the bill for the $120,000 and the $125,000 for Martin and Harris. And then they took it out of the deductible, and then they took it out again out of the insurance money. So Lundy got penalized twice. Just asking you, voted one way, but the repair money should be used because insurance. Ed Gonzalez, please. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Madam President, Dr. Brenda.Mitchell, member for the board. For the record, my name is Ed. I first want to speak on an item that is on tomorrow's agenda. I won't be there, I'll be at an open house at Hickey. You have an item to revise one of your regulations.
I'm sorry, I turned through my head, not on purpose, please turn it back on. But while I'm here, I do want to thank you for that experience. I want to thank you for providing that feedback. I turned it over really quickly. There'll be additional changes.
That's what I wanted to say. That's what I did wanted to thank. I did send it to, and just let the board know, because I only sent it to you, Madam President, and to Dr. Brenda.Mitchell, and then missed a phone call as well. I did get immediate feedback from them. Just the issue was with principals having a vote under the law, 50% have to be parents. It requires now an additional parent on the board, and so that wasn't included in there. And I'm glad that came to that, because I wouldn't want to have a 3rd reading and a 4th reading on the fourth regulation, so it makes it a little bit easier. So I'll start with that. And then number 2, I came a little late. So I didn't have an opportunity to speak on the superintendent search. Just the focus groups. I know I've been honored to be participated in each one of those, and so I know you don't take RFPs, but I count this as my RFP for the date of September 5th. But not only that too, I think a lot of them can be done online. I do agree with Trustee Brooks where we went the last time and there were very tiny crowds when we got to the third, the fourth, the fifth one. I think art could be done online. I know that's 30 minutes, or 30 people that I had in the group that I counted for an hour. This public comment will be longer than the time I expect, but that can be easily done online. I do think the special interest groups can be done the same way. But I do have some concerns that one, you got way too many. And I'm not gonna list people who should be taken off, but there's some even internally that, we want to get feedback and we know that feedback is important. But we're really saying some groups are more important than others. I know we don't say it that way, but that's really what it is. But let me give you an idea. You have the Text Education Committee. That's on your special interest groups. You have other committees, Bond Oversight, ASAP. The other ones that you have, why are they not included into it? You have individual members on it, but they should be included, and that can be done online. You have another one, you have City of North Las Vegas Education Advisory Committee, and that's great for them to be on there. But has Henderson CF been included? Has Milwaukee CF been included? Has Virgin Valley been included? So those are other stuff that we're looking at it as well, which is making sure it's broad-based and we have a category that people can do it. Once again, that can easily be done online. I do have a concern, we do regions are really large, they're like congressional districts, and some of them don't line up well. We have parts of Summerlin tied into the east side. So we want to make sure that we have the opportunity, those pieces can be done in person. But I do have one of a concern. And it's a particular group, because I don't know if the board is aware that they're inviting something like this. You have one group on your special interest, this is actually a special interest. What Trustee Brooks' definition is, it's a political action committee. And that's troublesome, not in the aspect that the people are in it, but if you have one or two, it doesn't matter what the purpose of the organization is, but a political action committee is designed to elect and to oppose candidates. And I ask this body, do you want that process to come into a superintendent search? That's the concern I have. I do not care what their political aspirations are. That's not the question. If you have a political action committee in the superintendent search, this body should say, is that what we want or not? Thank you.
All right, colleagues, thank you very much. That concludes public comment. We're gonna move on to upcoming meeting of the Board of Trustees on Thursday, tomorrow, August 8th at 5 p.m. here in the board. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam President. Recommend motion to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. That's fine.
I second.
Thank you, colleagues. We have a motion by Trustee Williams, a second by Trustee Guzman. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passed 7-0. The time is 32. Have a great night.